Trap Talk Reptile Network. I'm Chris Applin, and tonight I'm joined with Scott and Ty Eipper of Nature for You, amongst other things. How's it going, guys?
Good, mate. How are you? Oh, sorry.
All good, mate. I mean, we pretty much had a podcast off air just before we got on, so let's get into bits. For people that don't know, which is pretty rare, I would have thought, just tell us a bit about yourselves and what you guys do.
Oh, I just woke up. You lead.
Yeah, Scott and Ty Eipper. We've got a business called Nature for You. It started off originally just as doing wildlife demonstrations and problem snake removals, and it sort of morphed across now into herpetological consultancy, as well as doing snake training, venomous snake management training. Still doing demonstrations as well. And we do wildlife rehabilitation, and we also write books. And as a result too, we've started selling books as well. So we've got a bookshop too. And most recently, our latest thing that we've kicked off is the Cold Blooded Contributions podcast. So we're doing a podcast now as well, just to add to, because we didn't have enough to do.
It doesn't feel like that much, but then when you say everything out loud, you're like, fuck, when do I sleep?
Yeah. So, and then among that too, we're also doing papers and things like that. We've got a few research projects on the go that we're involved in. So yeah.
Definitely. Right, where should we start? Start with, do you have anything to add, Ty? Anything to that?
No. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Well, probably the thing about me is that I'll speak underwater with a mouthful of marbles. So,
and I'll let him.
And she'll let me. So.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to get Ty. I was trying to get Scott off. Ty, is there anything you want to say? You don't usually get a chance to get a word in sometimes, but obviously you guys are.
Everyone knows.
Yeah.
You guys are obviously based in Australia, which is land of the Varanus. So should we talk about some of the herp trips? We've got some photos and stuff to show as well. I don't know if you want to. If we want to bring,
if you bring up the photos, mate, I can probably talk through them and we can go from there. But yeah, I mean, Australia's got Jesus, how many species of varanid we've got now? About 28 to 29 species of varanid, and you know, depending on which part of the world you go to in Australia, it depends on how many species you've got. So in some places you've got almost up to 10 or 15 species in pretty close proximity to each other, depending on what habitat you're in. So, all right, he's categorized stuff. So
I've got all of them just in case. I didn't know if you'd named them, and then it was just Eipper to like a million.
But yeah, so there's a reason behind that, right? It's because on my image files, I have the localities. All right, and then if I ever send the images out to people, unless it's for a book, I make sure I drop the localities off it. And because I was
wow, did you subtly take that hint?
It's not that, it's that
I can see
general localities are fine, right?
Sorry.
General localities are fine to share. It's when you're giving out specific locations for things that can be a little bit concerning, and sometimes in my file name structure, because it is private, I can be pretty specific in regards to some of those locations for things. So.
Yeah.
Specific is a fine word for anally retentive dog.
Right, where do you want to start, guys?
Look, crack on from the start. We just moved through them, and they should be sort of in somewhat of order there. So, all right.
Where's the
Acanthurus on a termite mound. Doesn't look posed at all. So yeah, no, that's an Aki from just south of Mount Isa, that one. So Mount Isa is a funny place. You can get Akis that look like this that are pretty rubbish looking. But then you can also go, when you go to the next photo, I think the next one, that's another one. That's from George Fisher. He's covered in red dust there, but then you'll also get them that are bright yellow as well, more like that one. So, so in the same location, you can get these things that all look incredibly different to each other. You hear about this talk with Acanthurus that there might be an eastern and a western thing. I don't see it. I don't see the eastern and western things in them. I think when you look at them as a group, I think Acanthurus is probably all the same thing.
Sorry, messing around. Yeah, I agree with you. There's a few funny ones in the Pilbara. And then, yeah, that I can't remember what the Latin is on some of them that they were trying to split them. But yeah, Acanthurus is pretty much it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they suggested at one stage the eastern ones were Brachyurus.
That's it, Brachyurus, yeah.
And yeah, but the name hasn't sort of sunk. No one in Australia that I'm aware of actually uses it. So
yeah. Going back to book writing, I was going to do a book on Audatria, and obviously the first species alphabetically is Acanthurus, and then that other species come up, and I couldn't find anything on it, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a headache straight away." Do you know what I mean? And then there was no real way of splitting them. So if, like I said, if everyone recognizes Acanthurus, it make it a lot of an easier job for someone. Going back to that,
I think the split though that people talk about is like a bit of an artificial construct out of the US, where people were talking about these red Western Ackies, the red Ackies and the yellow Ackies. Well, no, not really. It just happens to be a polygenic trait that you've got some that have got more yellow in them, some have got more red in them. They're not actually a different locality or a specific locality thing. It just happens to be that one animal's got more yellow in it and it's been bred for more yellow, or one animal's got more red and been bred for more red in it. That's an animal straight out of the scrub. So it's not like it's a captive animal that's been cleaned up, or an animal that's been line bred to look like that. That's what you're starting with.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff in Australia, I noticed, is whatever substrate it's on. Do you know what I mean? That stuff up in Port Hedland is going to be bright red. There's bright red sand up there, and then as you move to more rocky areas, you get some like really light limestone or whatever. They're going to be lighter. That's what's going to work for them, I guess.
Yeah, well, this animal's off. It's ironstone where these things from. So.
Going back to that termite mound, have you actually found much in termite mounds? I know we like to use them a lot for posing and stuff, but all the stuff I've done in Australia, I don't think I've found anything on or in a termite mound. Maybe some agamity things, but have you found Ackies in them or?
Yeah, it depends on the time of year. If you're there when it's ridiculously hot, termite mounds aren't actually too bad.
Okay.
But it's a bloody destructive way of herping. So the only time that I've done it is when someone's been doing some clearing and I've been doing forder spotting. And so they've been clearing it anyway. So when they've cleared it, then I've gone through those then. And some days you'll see nothing. Other days you'll see shitloads of stuff in it.
Oh, nice. That's good to know.
So, yeah, I think it's dependent on temperature. The days that were really hot were the days that we tend to see more stuff in them.
Stuff in the mound. Yeah, they're pretty incredible. Some of those ones up in Darwin, I've just been there, obviously, and I think they're the magnetic ones. They're huge. Can't believe how big them structures are termite. I know we're not a termite podcast, but they're pretty special.
Well, you look at the size of a termite and you look at the size of the structure that they're building. If you scale it up to being a person, it's like people building something almost like the size of Mount Everest. It's insane. It is a huge area huge thing that they're building.
Yeah, and really tough as well. Really hard, a lot of them. I mean, the ones we get in Indo are quite soft compared to those ones you get in Australia. The arboreal ones we get over here, you can almost push through with your finger. But those ones that are in the outback, it's like cement.
Well, they've got to be really durable. They've got to be really solid on the outside to give that thermal barrier.
Again, we're not a termite podcast, but you might know this. I know you've done just because they're pretty interesting. Up in Darwin, obviously, it floods quite a bit. Do you know what happens to those mounds when it floods?
They just go. As I understand it, they can withstand flooding.
Okay, yeah, it was interesting because you see the flood, the flood signs and the markers, and you're like, "There's a termite mound that's small. Like, how does that survive?" Anyway, we'll get back off that and back onto.
But you do. When we do herp when it's been flooding, you do see things sitting on top of termite mounds and stuff like that. It usually wouldn't be because that's out of the water.
I've seen trucks overturned on the side of the road and stuff like that, but I've never seen a wayward termite mound.
No. Yeah, they're pretty incredible. Good builders. Right, let's get back into. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once.
That's right.
There we go. So did you say they were in the same region, Scott, those three, or they were different regions?
Yeah, all those three are within 200 kilometres of each other.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. What we got next? Semi-Remix, is it? Oh, no. Chlorostigma?
Yeah, so this is a chlorostigma from Adelaide River progeny. So this isn't a wild lizard. This is a captive animal, but this one's from the Adelaide River. So this is chlorostigma from the Adelaide River.
Oh, really?
So this is an NT chlorostigma. Yeah, it used to be indicus, but now it's
pretty
so
interesting.
I think there's a couple of pickies of that thing.
Second.
I think there's a couple of pickies of that thing. They're interesting because their tongue is completely blue.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, which is something a little bit unusual because the other chlorostigma thing I threw in there for actually to get your opinion on what you think it might be. I think there is another one there. Yeah, it's second from the top on the far right.
That was the one that bit you quite good, wasn't it? When you were taking photos of it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is.
Pretty much identical to what you found in Merauke, which is pretty close to Australia. Yeah, almost identical. They get this yellow spotting when they're younger, and then that pretty much disappears. They turn all white most of the time. I mean, that's literally what we've got here as Merauke. Yeah, I did wonder where that was a captive one, was it, Scott?
That was a captive one, and then the next one's a captive one too that was suggested to be a Dorianus, but it's pretty on. It was most likely to be I would suggest that's JBensis.
100%, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, it's just a sarong or a Jaipur or a JBensis. What's that doing over your way?
It was suggested to be a Dorianus. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, strange. Very strange. And let's go back to some of the Australian ones. These are pretty cool. These have just been formally described not that long ago. If it's Citrinus.
Yeah, this is a Citrinus, this thing. So yeah, that's from up near Hell's Gate.
Nice.
So that's far northwestern Queensland. So
yeah, very
quite a pretty lizard, that one.
Yeah, they're pretty special.
You sort of got that. The one thing that's a real characteristic of them is that bluish sort of stripe that runs down the center of their body. They were called blue stripe monitors for many, many years. And people thought they were most closely allied to what was being called Barigi at the time, which is now called Insulanticus.
Don't know what I've done there. Yeah, Insulanticus. Yeah, I don't agree with that one. That's a weird one. Don't know what your thoughts on that one, but yeah,
mate. If look, at the end of the day, the genetics suggests what the guys that did the paper are they're herpers as well as geneticists, right? So they do know what they're talking about. I don't know whether they could have potentially gone further on some of the stuff, but the one thing that we've got to remember as well is that they've got limitations to what they've got funding for and what they can look at. And of course, they would love to sample every lizard in every location that they get their opportunity to do. Sometimes they don't necessarily get that. So they pick certain areas that they think that there might be some differences in, and then they'll sample for those, and then they'll run the paper against that, and then they'll publish the results. As it stands, that particular paper, they looked at Barigi, Insulanticus, those things, and Acanthurus, all from that sort of general vicinity, and they found that the animals that were called Insulanticus that live out on the island, they were the same as the things in the Northern Territory. Now, those island populations have only been separated for about probably 5,000 years. And so because they've only been separated for 5,000 years, it's not unreasonable to think that they probably are the same as what's on the mainland. And so the name that you have to use is the oldest available name. And so as Insulanticus predated the name by White et al. That named Barigi, that's the oldest available name. And so the animals that were called Barigi now become Insulanticus. Yes, they look completely different, the animals on the Western Islands, to what Barigi does, but genetically they're the same. And so as a result, they got that name. And because there wasn't an available name for the yellow-throated things, they called them Citrinus, which, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, so it was a little armchair tick anyway. I didn't think I'd ever get to any of those islands to find the proper Inchulanicus, so I was pretty happy with that one.
The proper Inchulanicus are amazing-looking lizards, eh?
Yeah, the one I think is it Swan's book or Stephen Swan's book? That field guide.
I think it's Steve Wilson's book and Jerry Swan's book. That animal was photographed by I reckon probably Nick Gambold, and it would be from the Western Islands. So
incredible
Nick's
looking. I don't know if they
Nick's done a heap of herping trips in the a heap of fauna work and stuff like that in the Northern Territory, and he's found and photographed all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's got some really good pictures. But yeah, I haven't seen enough of those. I don't know if that was just one particular one that was pretty special looking. It was like black and white almost with sort of striping, wasn't it? But I don't know if they all look like that.
I've spoken to a few people about that, whether that was an unusual animal or what, and apparently no, that's what they all look like over there.
Interesting.
But it's a hard place to get to, even in Australia, right? Because it's an area that's got traditional owner control to it as well. So it's not like you can just go. Within Australia, you've got areas that anyone can sort of go that's on public land, and then you've got certain locations that have got that are controlled by traditional owners, and so to get onto those locations, you've got to get the appropriate permits to get onto there. Now, to get those permits, you have to justify why you would need to go there, and to go on there because you want to look at reptiles may not necessarily cut the mustard. So, not necessarily the easiest way to get on there.
No.
I would suggest that if you're going to try and get onto those locations, see if there's a fishing charter that goes some fishing charter.
When you say that, I was in
if there's a fishing charter, you might be able to go looking for bait for an extended period of time, shall we say, and bycatch a lizard at the same time.
Yeah, I was literally in the hotel in Darwin flipping through like the tourist magazine. I don't know if it was the Tiwi Islands or one of the other islands, Wesel maybe. It was like, fishing charters. I was like, that's interesting. I didn't like you were just saying, you need a permit to get on there. But yeah, there's always where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, I bet there's some really good stuff on those places for sure.
Yeah, well, the Bathurst and the Tiwi Islands are a little bit easier to get onto, as I understand it. Right. But yeah, those islands off the northeast coast of the Northern Territory that are sort of within the Arnhem Land region, very difficult to get onto. Because even then, right, like you can get permits to traverse Arnhem Land to head to places like Gove or Nullarbor and stuff like that. But to get into that location where that stuff is, pretty tough.
Yeah, I know. You can't have it all. Do you know what I mean? You're spoiled in Australia anyway, with the amount of land you can actually go and herp on and have a look around. So pretty cool to have some places that are special anyway.
Yeah.
Did you find this one, Scott?
What's that?
Was this a trip you went on to find these Citrinus, or was this a captive one?
Oh, okay. That particular animal's a captive one, but I did find them. I have found them.
Yeah.
So,
No. And what sort of habitat do you find these guys in?
Same sort of habitat around Isaac. You got that rocky country that you get them in. So it's basically you come out of the black soil and you hit those rocks, and when you hit the rocks and that woodland outside of the black soil, that's where they're in.
Yeah. I need to get. I've never been
on those rocky escarpment type country.
Yeah, that's pretty special. I've done the Barclays up near that way. That Barclay Highway, is it?
Yep.
It's pretty. It's like.
Well, if you take the Barclay Highway and you head up to Burraroola, from Burraroola across towards Hell's Gate, that's in the right. That's the right habitat there. Yeah,
I need to do a trip from Darwin across to Cape York or something and try and fit those guys in. It'd be pretty cool. Very cool. Yep. Where do you want to go? Where did we get to? I don't know if it's a leave on the prentice. Are these captive prentices, Scott?
They are captive prentices. They're our prentices.
I'm going to leave that till a bit later on. We've got a glauter eye there. Pretty special lizard. Very cool.
Yeah. not an exciting thing. That one's from Keep River.
Okay.
So Keep River's on the is on the edge of the Northern Territory WA border.
Yeah. I know. I've driven past got a national park there.
Yeah, so it's a effectively, even though it's in the Northern Territory, it's effectively the same part as the Eastern Kimberley. So the habitat is exactly the same as what you get in WA, in that Eastern Kimberley part, but Keep River happens to be in the Northern Territory.
Northern Territory. Very nice. Still a good find, mate. They're pretty, they're cool. My favourite.
You gonna go the Glebo? Throw the Glebo up or what?
Yeah.
Throw the Glebo up.
Sorry, I didn't realise they weren't going up. That's me.
Lot of hours looking for that bloody thing.
Sorry, mate. I didn't realise it hadn't.
That's all right. That's
the Glout Ride from the Keep River, but like I said, that'll just be the NT version of what you find around Kununurra and those sort of areas.
Yeah, but it's not the eastern ones that are probably something else.
Okay.
You know, those eastern Glout that you get in Kakadu are much prettier than that.
Yeah. Right. Now we're on board. I'll just say hello to some people. Hi, Paul. How's it going, mate? Pretty early today. Yeah, it's hard to get all the time zones to tie up. Hi, Scandinavian Guanas. How's it going, mate? And hello, Lucid Arboreals. Thanks for tuning in. Right, let's get this Glebo up. Stop messing about. There we go. This one...
So I've been doing snake management up at Mount Isa now for about 15 years, and I've always gone looking for these bloody things, and I've never been able to sort of really get onto them. And then the last trip I did with a mate, we were up there doing some stuff, and we looked in. It was a slightly different time of year, and we started looking in some slightly different locations, and then sure enough, we turned a few of them up. We were able to see them. Being able to get photos of them was a whole nother thing, though. So pretty incredible lizard. So and they're big too. Like these, most people think these things are fairly small. This thing's like the size of a Sango.
Yeah, it's insane. I don't know if they're as big. They must be as big up in the Northern Territory. I've never seen one as big as that. I was surprised when I saw it. That almost looks like a little parenti, doesn't it? But
well, that's the thing about them, is that we've kept parentis for years, and the body, the shape, the length of the neck, the way the lizard moves, it's so parenti-like. Like these are ideal. Like, if hopefully people will be able to eventually breed these things and really establish them at some point, because these are as every good as any size parenti out there. They're just better suited for captivity in regards to their length. Incredibly, and they're so switched on too. Like when you see these things, you can see their brains just like ticking over.
They're a pain, to be honest. I've seen now on the last trip I actually got proper up close to one, and the two before that have been a flash of that yellow tail. That's all I see. It's that yellow tail going into a rock, and they don't come back out like the Glauterai and some of the other stuff. You can sit on those rocks and they'll come back out. I've sat next to where I know a Glebo is, and they just stay there. They're so switched on. That range of their flight response seems to be pretty big on some of them. I know that other people get lucky up in the Northern Territory. They can walk right up to one. But yeah, for the most part, they're just off. Do you know what I mean? They're gone.
Yeah. Well, they can also too, right? They can also sort of not hang around they'll sulk there for a day or 2 days, even apparently. I've been told that once they've gone into something, they aren't coming out.
Yeah, they're not like the inquisitive, like the those Glauterai. You can sit up in like Kununurra. There's a spot up there, and you'll chase it off, and then within like an hour of being there, they'll just be walking all around you. Everything. But all the Glebos I've ever seen, they've just gone. They're very switched on. Very good eye. I mean, their eyes. I don't know if you noticed it, Scott, but their eyes compared to their head are massive.
Huge eyes, and and their forward-facing vision on them as well is incredible. I think that one of the photos I've got there, I've got a front-end shot on them, and these guys eat lizards too. That's their main diet is lizards. So that's the other name is the black palmed rock monitor. Those palms are almost slightly adhesive. Like it's incredible the speed that they can run across those rocks. That's why, because they've got that traction on their feet. So,
interesting enough, the same what you find on a tree monitor, which has obviously been, it's evolved for trees to hold on, but these have done exactly the same thing, convergently sort of evolved for rocks. So you get those pads exactly the same on your tree monitors. I think you got, there we go. I mean, that's a wicked shot.
Yeah, it's almost, it reminds me of Big Bird, mate. They're so bird-like in appearance when you sort of look at them, and that's probably the last thing a gecko or a Hosmer skink ever sees. Is that just before it gets pounced on. So
what time of day did you find your one, Scott? Early morning or later on?
Late in the afternoon.
Okay, so super hot and
super hot. Super hot. It was fun. So
that ISA population is interesting. Do you know why that possibly has been the case? Why you find them down there as well as in the NT and the Kimberley?
They do go a fair bit further over. They head. They're at Cloncurry as well, but they go down the Selwyn Range. And how far down the Selwyn Range they go, I'm not quite sure. Probably to about Dejara, Winton area sort of thing. But the eastern animals are they seem to be a bit larger than the western animals as well.
100%. Yeah.
And the coloration slightly different. They seem to have a little bit more oranges and reds through them, but that's probably just a fallback due to the rocks that they're on.
Yeah.
That red granite is pretty distinctive. So,
it's like boulders over there, Scott. It's not like escarpment, is it? Or is it?
No, it's like big boulders the size of your house.
Yeah.
Or multiple houses in some cases. It's pretty incredible country.
You get that. Yeah, up near, well, in the NT you get those boulders. I've never really hurt them too much, but then you get the escarpment as well, where obviously you find the glebe. I'm sure you probably get as many on that boulder country as you do on the escarpment country.
It's easier to see them in the boulders, so they probably do occur on the escarpments as well. But in the boulders, you tend to get smaller piles of boulders, and it's a bit easier to get around them, so to speak. On cliff faces, you don't necessarily know what they're doing 40 meters up a cliff, So,
the one I gone.
But one of the things that does it is a bit easier to see them sometimes is a lot of bird watchers see them, particularly when they go in the dry season when it's cooler, and they use binoculars and they can see them from a long way off, and they'll sit out and bask. But when you get within 50 meters of them, they're usually off.
Yeah, that's exactly what I found with the few I've seen. Yeah, incredible lizards. Like I said, hopefully someone can get them going somewhere in captivity. It'd be amazing to know what they're even like to keep, because you know how flighty they are. I don't know. Captive bred ones will probably be a bit better, but the wild ones must be a bit of a hard work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to keep them at some point in time, but we're on the downsizing of things these days as opposed to increasing in size in regards to the collection. We've got so much on, and we sort of made a decision that we want to travel a bit more and see a few other things as opposed to have a house full of reptiles. So when we say a house full of reptiles, we've still got a house full of reptiles. The numbers are, only a single hundred, so to speak, as opposed to hundreds.
Yeah.
So,
one monitor is like 10 snakes. That's how it equates. I mean, each time you've got a monitor, the work that goes into that is like easy 10 snakes. I think it is. Let's get some.
How many Varanus have you got at your facility?
I should know. I know exactly how many tree monitors I've got because I've had them all out. We got 215 adult breeding tree monitors, and probably. I don't even want to guess on. We've got something like 20 Salvadori adult breeders, so 20 crocodile monitors, 20 Uoni, probably 10 to 20 of each species you can keep in Indonesia.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. But yeah, that would surprise me, the tree monitors, when I actually count, because I've done a stock take for them. Getting up there, and like, because they're all over the place, we're on 2 hectares here. When they're all over the place, you don't really notice it because you just walk past cages. And then when you actually have to get them out and, catalog everything, you're like, I was typing away and it's like 215. Oh shit, that's a lot of monitors. Yeah.
So are you got a big insect breeding facility that you're doing? And
yeah, all food. Well, we wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. Just impossible. Yeah, it takes up, like, it goes down there. It takes up, the length of the farm pretty much. In one building. It's all dubia, red roaches. We've got some local cockroaches, and then just thousands and thousands of crickets. And we just get through so many. Same for the rodents. It's another building, the same. It's impossible to do otherwise. It costs a fortune. We're pretty lucky that they breed really well with the weather we got. So that's a full-time job. I mean, there's probably 10 people just doing the crickets. Well,
I was going to say, right, that's the sustainability of it, isn't it? Right? Is at least then you don't have to worry about obtaining food from somewhere else. I mean, for us,
it's healthy too. There's no chemicals that were accidentally sprayed around or whatever.
It's one of the things that we sort of pushed away from the insect feeding stuff. Probably 5-10 years ago now, it would seem.
I know.
It's bloody been a long time since we had sort of lots of geckos and all the rest of it, because we sort of decided, we made that decision that was like, okay, we're still going to have the snakes, obviously. We're still going to have the skinks. We're still going to have varanids. But we're like, do we need a heap of geckos? Do we need a heap of this? Do we need a heap of that? And it was so much work.
Unless you can find someone that does it at their own place, sort of thing. It's an arm and a freaking leg for a box of crickets. And
we were going through, so we weren't large insect keeping reptiles, didn't have large numbers of them at all. But we were going through sort of 1,500 to 2,000 crickets a week. And then Ty's got an absolute phobia of cockroaches. So cockroaches weren't something that was going to go down that road. So basically, because we weren't doing those, it was crickets and grasshoppers and stuff like that. And then obtaining anything other than that was going to be difficult. And then even then, right, with crickets, you had 2 or 3 major suppliers, but then one of the major suppliers, lost a heap due to that cricket disease that goes around every now and then. And so they lost numbers. So when they lost out, then suddenly, all the prices went up because no one had anything anymore. And it ended up being so expensive. We just said, look, we're not using these for demonstrations. We're not using them for this. They're really just in the way. They're causing us bloody grief as much as they're interesting.
Sorry.
Yes, right.
They were that expensive there for a while that we were feeding anything, like we were taking them out on top of the crocodile cage, so we weren't wasting any that got out because the crocodile would eat them.
The dogs, someone's decided to let off some fireworks down the street, and the dogs are going nuts. So
what's that for? Not even a special day. They do that here all the time. The guys in Indonesia let fireworks off in the day. It's like, what was the noise? It's just insane. But yeah, we're really lucky because they're using a lot of crickets and stuff now for obviously human consumption over here. So we can actually buy cricket eggs by the kilo. So we literally get a bag of cricket. If ours are slowing down, we can buy a kilo of cricket eggs, which God knows how many you get out of that. It's a lot if you can think how tiny a cricket egg is. And then we just put them into cocoa peat to hatch out, and then we've got millions of crickets again. So we're really lucky over here.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that'd be a great way to be able to do it. Unfortunately, though, for us, it was just like not enough time in the day.
I need to talk to you later about that for something.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
I just see Freezy's Reptiles is in there as well. I just want to say good day to Freezy there in the chat.
Yeah, hello, mate.
So an Aussie herp has jumped in there. So
I don't have my glasses on. I can't see anything. I'm sorry.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tricky in Australia for a lot of stuff. You just haven't really got the industry there, like other countries. Like the UK is pretty set up, even for cricket breeders and stuff. But I think Frizy is breeding locust. Is that Frizy?
Yeah, I think he does locust and
yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah,
but also too, we have quite the limitation compared to everywhere else on bugs we're actually allowed to have and keep. So.
Yeah.
I mean, they're restricted just like everything else here. So, you got to be.
We were toying with the idea of getting the African locust, which we could get here, but we're surrounded by rice paddy fields. We've got a local locust, but it doesn't breed very well compared to the African ones. So, like, should we get some? It's like, can you imagine if they got out and just eat everyone's rice around here? I mean, people would literally starve. So it's like, no. We'll just go. We literally go into the paddy fields, collect a load, keep them for a while, to flush the gut through, and then just feed those off now. Australia is going to be super hot on that. So let's get back to these pictures, mate. Where do we get Glebopalma? That's an interesting Scalaris, I think. That one of the ones from Atherton? Is it Atherton?
Yeah, so that one's from Coranda.
Yeah.
So again, this one's a captive individual, but I've seen them as far south as Paluma, and as far north as Herberton, and sort of in that rainforest country is where you see them. They're a beautiful lizard.
Really nice.
Yeah, and how anyone can call that the same thing as a Scalaris from WA or a Similis from the Northern Territory. It's beyond me.
Yeah, someone needs to really sort that group out. I mean, there's so many lizards there that need describing, aren't they? All across that whole Scalaris group is just a bit of a mess. I thought there was some people working on it, but...
Yeah, I think at some point in time someone will split them, but I think what they'll end up seeing is that some things that are currently sitting within the Tristis complex will be more closely related to some things in the Scalaris complex and vice versa as well. I think, it wouldn't surprise me if there was, probably 7 or 8 species between those two that are actually there. So,
yeah, but just completely different looking. I mean, the ones from the Kimberley, the Scalaris, those banded ones, I think that's the type locality from Beagle Bay. Is another one.
Correct. The Beagle Bay is the type locality for them.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. I'm on a little tablet for your.
No, that's all right. So that's a Mertens. That one's from Georgetown, in Queensland. That's an in situ photo. That one. There was a male and a female about probably about 7 feet apart from each other. And then when I took that photo, the male pissed off around the back. But so that was a male and female pair from Georgetown.
Yeah, opposite to the Glebopalma, they seem to just sit around and let you get on with it. From the ones I've seen in the NT, haven't been as
you can dive with them at a few places in the NT that you can swim around with them and they don't give a shit at all. They know that they're faster than people, so if they need to put the motor on, they move off. But other than that, they're more than happy for fishing scraps and stuff like that.
Very cool.
That's a Michelai.
Is it? I've bred Michelai.
That's a juvenile Michelai. That one.
Yeah. I was thinking because the Semiremics look pretty similar as babies, or am I wrong on that?
I've never seen a juvenile Semiremics.
Have you not? Okay.
No. I've never seen a juvenile. I've caught adults, and they've caught me. Fucking chainsaws, but anyway.
I think they're pretty similar. I think Robert from
Grabowski.
That's it, Grabowski. I think he's bred both, and I was shocked because, like I said, I bred Michelai back in the UK, and then I was looking at his pictures, going, "Oh, that's a Michelai," and it was Semiremic. So then I was confused because you wouldn't get Michelai down where you are. So I'd wonder. No
Michelai down here.
Yeah. So I thought it might have been a Semiremic. Okay, that's pretty cool.
So Semiremics are still about 500k from our place, further north. Where you start getting them. That's a local Panoptes.
Nice.
That one's from actually out between Lake Broadwater and Tara.
I would have been happy if I seen
on a good trip.
Yeah. So when they're moving, you can, doing a drive out through the Brigalow, you can see upwards of 20 panoptes in a morning.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, you'll often see quite a few hit ones because I'll go out after the roadkills. So you'll see roadkill roos and stuff like that, and then you'll see the panoptes will go out after them.
Yes, and the same happens in WA. I mean, a lot of ghoul die there, but you get panoptes, rubidius, or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, like you said, you get those carcasses on the road, and then you get a carcass, then you get a panoptes next to it. So I try and drag things off the road as much as I can. Even the panoptes, I try and drag them off the road. So stuff ain't gone there so much.
So I looked at some when we were in Bali. We had a look at a few of the Indonesian panoptes, and they look nothing different. I reckon they're that horny is probably a bullshit subspecies. To be honest, I don't think they're anything different at all.
Yeah, do you know what? We've got a load here, and I had some out the other day. Some we'd bred here. I was like, they fucking don't look any different at all. Like, I've never really bothered to compare the two, and I was like, well, that's exactly what I found in Australia, pretty much. But I don't know enough on them to compare. But yeah, I think I think what it is probably that people assume that the stuff in Papua was different to the stuff that was here, right? But 20,000 years ago, you could walk from Hobart to Halmahera. Yeah.
Right. So, that's an absolute blink in the eye in regards to genetic separation. So the animals that are in the Northern Territory and that are in the southwestern part of the island of New Guinea, they're the same animals for the most part.
Yeah, all the ones we get here, they're all from around Merauke, which is right on that, that southern coast, which would have exactly joined up pretty much, probably around Darwin somewhere, maybe a bit further over, around that sea we were talking about, the Sea of Carpentaria. Never say that.
Yeah, it's the Arafura Sea there in between the two.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's what I was getting at.
The Gulf of Carpentaria, and it was the Carpentarian Sea.
That's it. Yeah. But yeah, pretty cool how it splits, and like you said, it's been pretty recent, 11,000 years ago. You can walk there. Pretty insane.
Yeah, and so I suppose that's one of the reasons why there wasn't the appropriate habitat on the northern part of Cape York Peninsula, which is why you don't have green pythons on the islands of the islands of the Torres Strait, and you don't have them right up the tip of Cape York. And the mountain range that goes around to the east, which is now dotted as a series of islands in the Torres Strait, that's where the green pythons came in. So Iron Range, the Micklerath Range, and then it goes off into the sea, goes under the border there, and then pops back up the other side of the Fly River Delta in Papua New Guinea is where it sort of joins back up. And so that's the area in between. Cape York itself, even though there's patches of rainforest and stuff like that, that wasn't an interconnected rainforest into New Guinea, and that's why you don't have green pythons up the tip of Cape York and why they're a bit further down. And I wonder if that's why there's separation between Keith Horney and why Keith Horney doesn't go any further than Iron Range further north. They're not in Lockerbie Scrub from all intents and purposes.
No.
There was a few reports many, many years ago that there was potentially something there, but it doesn't appear that they're in Lockerbie. It doesn't appear they're on the tip either. And then even on the Torres Strait Islands, Moa Island, I believe, is the most further south that you get presence.
So I've got the picture up here of Prasinus, which I don't know if it's an Australian one, Scott.
It's an animal that I don't know where it's from. It's a captive.
I know exactly where it's from, but we won't go into that. But
it's a captive individual. So.
Yeah. That makes even more sense. You bloody Australians, as bad as everyone else. Don't want it going out, but don't mind it coming in. That's what I think you guys are up to. But anyway, we won't get to that. Interesting you say that on those Torres Strait Islands, Scott. I'd never really thought of that. Why you get Pristinus there and then you don't get the green trees there is quite interesting.
Yeah, but that's why you don't. They don't. That's why there's a separation between them, right?
Yeah.
Because if they were abutting each other,
Yeah.
one species would overtake the other, or there'd potentially be gene flow between the two populations. There's no gene flow because they don't abut.
No, I meant more the viridis. The key thorn. You're exactly right.
Oh yeah, but that's yeah. And I'd say that's what's going on with some of the scrubbies as well, potentially.
Yeah.
A couple of other things, maybe.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, there's reports of them on Prasinus that is on the north of the tip, but I don't think that's ever been substantiated. I've looked into it for the book that I'm writing, and I think Irwin's one of them, and then I think Gunther or someone else might have seen one up there, but never. There's not enough people going up there now herping. You would have thought they would have turned up a Varanus Prasinus now. You would have thought.
Well, I mean, Dorianus is a great example of that, right? So Dorianus wasn't classed as being in Australia until that Varanoid Lizards of the World book came out, and there was 2 species that were added to the Australian list from that book. Varanus finchi and Dorianus were added. Dorianus was spoken about being potentially in Australia from an individual, a bird watcher that photographed one at a place called the Smuggler's Tree, which is in Iron Range National Park. They photographed a mangrove monitor that had a blue tail, and it was just assumed to be a bit of a mangrove monitor until someone else who'd seen a lot of mangroves looked at it and said, hang on, that's probably a Dorianus. And even then, there was still a fair bit of resistance about whether or not there was Dorianus there or not. And then, a few other photos suddenly started pitching up, and then, sure enough, it's
all the time now. It seems that's in that Lockerbie area. Yeah,
I think what it is, though, it's digital cameras too, right?
Yeah.
So, I come from a time that when we were taking photos, we'd press a button, and it used to cost $1, and it was quite frustrating and all the rest of it. So you wanted to make sure you get that photo. These days with digital cameras and digital zooms and those sorts of things, you can zoom in on something from a long way away, and photo enhancement software is better as well. And as a result, you can turn up and get a decent identification as a lot of those things. On the track.
Yeah, it just seems that are they in just one particular area? They're in that Lockerbie bit, Scott. I can't remember if they're just found there, but
they're in Iron Range.
Yeah,
Dorianus are in Iron Range. I don't know if they go as far as Lockerbie Scrub as well.
I know that. Just weird how, like I said, I guess if one person finds them, then other people start looking for them. Maybe just seems like in the last 10 years or maybe 5 years, even every year now, I see a few people are sort of ticking them off in Australia.
Well, also too, the road's greatly improved as well. There's a suggestion that there's going to be a bitumen road to the tip of Cape York in the next 10 years as well. So if there's a bitumen road to the tip of Cape York in 10 years, mate, people will be going up there in the wet season and all the rest of it. I know because people can fly into like Lockerbie Airport now. They'll fly into Lockerbie, and from Lockerbie then they'll drive to Iron Range in the wet. And so you can get in the wet, and obviously it's easier to find some of this stuff in the wet season as well as opposed to the dry. In the dry season, they're probably sitting up on the tops of the trees. And a boreal monitor is a lot harder to see when they're sitting on the tops of the trees as opposed to moving around on the floor.
Yeah, that's what's put me off going up there. I'm no 4-wheel drive guy. I'll wreck anything on a bitumen road, let alone a 4-wheel drive. So that's what's always put me off going to that tip. So we'll see. Hopefully it's like Catch-22, isn't it? It'd be like a proper good road for herping on, but then you'd get twice as many idiots up there as you probably do already. So.
Yeah,
people, you can't worry about the people that are going to do the wrong thing. If they're going to do the wrong thing, you're going to do the wrong thing. It's up to them.
Yeah,
all you can control is yourself. So
I meant more the grey nomad, Scott, that you get around Australia.
Well, the thing is there's so many patches of blacktop now between, sort of Eipper and the tip now as well, and Laura and the tip. There's all these patches of really good road. It wouldn't surprise me if it was all bitumen in not in the distant future. So
Yeah, I think there's a really good road that's from Broome up to that Dampier Peninsula up to Beagle Bay. I think they're bitchising that as well. Which would be a great road for herping and getting up into there, but then you get all the shit that goes with it, unfortunately. Anyway,
if the Dampier Peninsula Road becomes bitumised, I'd hazard to guess a few people might turn up Sparnus.
100%.
They're one of those lizards that are pretty hard to find. So.
Yeah, definitely. I've looked long and hard for them, but it's just like I might see one, probably not. A few people have got them, haven't they? There's been some pretty good photos of them now.
Yeah, there's a young fella got one recently, I think.
Nico, I think his name is Nico. Anyway, really good photo. Super lucky. I spoke to him about it. He just turned up on the road on the unsealed road. You just seen it. So imagine how many you find on the bitumen. Anyway, here's a lovely Semi-Rex.
Yeah. Fresh out of biting the shit out of me.
Are they pretty teethy, aren't they?
Oh, look, where that particular one was, it was the first Semi-Rex I ever sort of got to see. And it was inside a hollow, and there was no way I could sort of do anything other than stick my hand inside it. And I was like, well, I really want to get photos of this lizard, so I'll bugger the fingers, she'll be right. And stuck my hand in and got bitten a few times in the process. But what an amazing lizard. Amazing lizard to see. So apparently they used to be in massive numbers. And since we've had cane toads and stuff like that, and then also a lot of redevelopment in the mangroves as well, it's wiped out a lot of habitat for them. They have become a bit threatened in places now. So but absolute amazing lizards. I don't think they've got. I don't think they're really overseas too much. I think they're basically kept in Australia.
Never see them in Europe or America. Yes, one that got missed, unfortunately. No, the Germans were slacking there.
I will say this: they're probably the perfect size for a captive monitor. They're like 80 centimeters, 90 centimeters, absolute total length. A little bit bigger than an Aki, fair bit heavier in the body, very secretive, but absolutely amazing lizards.
Yeah, sound a lot like Mitchellii, to be fair. They're sort of similar sort of habitats. There's two populations.
Not as dorsally depressed as Mitchellii. Mitchellii seem to be a little bit flatter. These are a bit more rounded. A
bit more robust. Is there two populations of these, Scott? Is there any merit to that? Do you know about
that? Well, apparently there is. I've only ever seen the eastern population. I haven't seen the ones around Eipper. I've spent a lot of time looking for them around Eipper, but never been able to see. Never been able to get them. So, and walking around in the low tide on the mud flats around Eipper, you've got to be cautious of the big swamp geckos out there. But you don't want to end up being a
statistic.
a statistic. But like you can walk through the mangroves looking for semis at Rocky and Yeppoon and places like that. It's sort of around the Yeppoon area. And you'll see them at low tide. You see evidence of them at low tide. I didn't see any evidence of them at Eipper at low tide. And I spent a lot of time walking through. I wasn't seeing any tracks that you'd usually see. Saw a few panoptes and stuff like that, but I didn't see any Semi-Rex there. I would have liked to have seen them though.
Definitely, yeah.
I pushed hard. I just didn't get them.
That's the way it goes. Story, I don't know what they story.
No, well, this one's Ocreatus now.
Ocreatus, yeah. I did. What do you know? What the different? Is it? Do they look that much different? I haven't really looked into it since they
don't look very different. But when you look at the plantar scales, the plantar scales are completely different in the two.
Okay, so it's not like blinding.
And distribution too. They don't overlap at all.
No, yeah, I understood that. I just didn't know if you had two of them, if it was that easy to see between. Like some of the stuff that's been split up is pretty obvious, but these from the pictures I looked at were like, I probably couldn't tell myself.
No, I think that they don't have the their patterning isn't as strong as the eastern ones. I think you do see a little bit more pattern on the eastern animal.
Yeah.
That particular animal is from near Mount Isa as well. That one.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's on the eastern edge of Ocreatus's range.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I didn't even know they got over that far.
Yeah, no, they do get that far, and then that's the rock type that one was on is on a shale type.
They're pretty common in the right places. So I've never found Storai, even the Ocreatus. To be fair, I haven't really looked for them. I need to, if I go back to WA, maybe look for them. But apparently really common once you get onto them.
Yeah, sheets of tin, rubbish. You know, and they can be in huge densities as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's nothing. Flipping rubbish at night actually is pretty good for them.
Yeah.
So going around looking at night and turning over cover at night is usually pretty good for them.
We better chuck in Bell's Lacey, as everyone seems to be keeping these days. And
yeah, that one's from Cessnock.
As long as it doesn't say bloody Lake Broadwater, then
No.
We should have, just to rub it in.
We should have, shouldn't we? Yeah, no, that one's from Cessnock, which is in eastern New South Wales. That's about as far east as you get Bells that I'm aware. Okay. Generally speaking, they're west of the Great Dividing Range for the most part. But there's a few places that they penetrate the Great Dividing Range. Cessnock Wollombi area is one. Lake Broadwater area is another. But then you also get them up around Cooktown as well. So there's a couple something right at the top that you also get bells there as well. There's reports of bells at Bundaberg. And
I think Tom might have found one.
What's that?
I think Tom might have found one. I could be wrong. He might begin. Is the one near Is there a town near Broadwater beginning with a G, Gladstone or something?
Oh, Glenmorgan. Glenmorgan is but Glenmorgan's fair west of the Divide.
Okay.
West of the Divide there. So and lots of bells at Glenmorgan.
Yeah. Do you find these together with the normal ones? Do you find bells?
Yeah,
you do.
Yeah, you can get them within 5 meters of each other. You know.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize if they once you got into bells, it was just bells.
No, so the name bells is after a British herpetologist, and they thought it was a different species. So when the animal went back to the UK, they generally thought it was a different species, and it was called Varanus belly. And then when they looked at them, they found them to be the same thing, and it's just a polymorphic trait. So you can breed a regular to a Bell's, and if the regular's got Bell's blood in it, then you'll get Bell's babies as well as regular babies in the same clutch.
Yeah, just a bit
but
more.
If you breed two Bells together, then you'll get Bell's babies as well.
Just more adapted. Is it drier where these are coming from rather than that rainforest sort of area you get the normal ones? Is that why that sort of work in that area, do you think, or is it just a polymorphic trait?
It's just a polymorphic trait.
Yeah. Okay. Very smart.
But I think, in the polymorphic traits, right, things that, it seems to be more prevalent, I suppose, more lizards seem to carry that recessive gene in the animals west of the Great Dividing Range. Right? So that's why you don't tend to see it happen anywhere near as frequently on the eastern side of the Great Dividing Range. It's not to say that it can't happen, it's just it doesn't happen frequently. No,
I just thought there might be, because you do get that split, I thought there might be an evolutionary advantage for them to be that lighter colour. Maybe they're coming from more sort of lighter sandy areas or something like that.
Well, they tend to live in forests, right? And on the Great Dividing Range, you've got a lot of dry sclerophyll and wet sclerophyll forest. And then you've got rainforest as well. And so that dappled light with that flecking, that dark colour with that light flecking is probably more advantageous than having big pale bands of blocks of colour there, right? So it's less dappled, so they're probably not, particularly as juveniles, they're probably more likely to get picked up by birds and kookaburras and stuff like that. I know the bells that we had here in the backyard, they were very quick to be grabbed by birds. If you have birds, no, but even on the enclosures, like they'd
sit on the enclosures and try and get them.
So we'd have kookaburras and stuff like that trying to get the lizards through the wire and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're pretty voracious little things. Those kookaburras, big things actually. Those kookaburras. When you start, my uncle on the last trip wanted to see one, and I've seen them all over the place. And then obviously, when you do start looking for them, they seem to pop up a lot. But a lot of the ones you see are have snakes in their mouths or lizards when you actually start looking at them. So they're pretty voracious. Let's finish this one, Scott. And then we'll get to the captive stuff, and then Ty can actually speak maybe because I think
Shut up. So this is a melanistic or partially melanistic Varanus, just a lacy that was from near Inskip Point. So I think the next photo is the one that I like to put up and freak people out because it's just got a black neck. This is a black head. And ask people what it is. They don't usually know they don't usually see that as just being a lace.
I was literally just looking at that. I was like, he's got a bloody black salvator on here. What's going on with that?
That's that same lizard from before. So
yeah, that's insane. Right, Ty's turn to speak. We'll start with the captive stuff, but I can't obviously not. Bring
go to the next picture. The next one's a better picture anyway.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Go on, Ty, take us away. How was working with
No pressure.
It's all right, Scott will just button in 2 seconds and then
So they're ours. We got them, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of age or something?
Yeah.
They are unbelievable to work with. I mean, everyone we know that works in zoos say you can't beat Komodos, but obviously here you're sort of limited. You can't get anything other than natives. So, they are awesome, super intelligent.
Some people like them, like lacies more than parentis. I find I like parentis so much more than lacies.
I think they actually are more intelligent than lacies.
Yeah, I think they are too. I mean, ours come to their name.
Yeah,
so we'll call them and they'll come over. So the enclosures that we have them in are fairly large enclosures, and then they've got feeding doors on them as well. So you can call one over to his feeding station and feed them through that door. And then the reason we did that is so that we didn't have, if we had two in this same enclosure, is that the whole idea is that we wouldn't get food aggression between the lizards with each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that recently, and not recently, they have been saying that. It's just like a different animal. There's one that lives in the trees, which is a lace monitor, which might appear more just like a different behavior you're going to get out of a parentie than walks around all day and is built a bit different than you're going to get from a lacy. So I can't see that they're not intelligent. The ones I've seen in the outback are pretty bloody intelligent. I don't want to
humanize it. So we had the first two that we got together in an enclosure outside. We try and keep everything outside where possible for the UV, not going to lie, lack of maintenance, et cetera, and the cages are quite big, so we can put a lot more natural enrichment than we can of something inside. And we had the two together. We were under the impression it was male and female. We were told it was male and female. And I could smell, when you can smell death? I could smell death and I couldn't find it. And I went through all the outdoor enclosures, could not find it. And we have pretty small mesh on our outdoor enclosures. We don't want toads getting in.
Yeah.
A juvenile toad got through the enclosure, the mesh in the enclosure, and one of the parenties ate it.
Oh.
When we found it, the other parentie was like this with its arm around its dead mate. And I'm there going, oh, fuck. Oh, my God. And I'm like crying because he obviously felt the loss.
Yeah, definitely.
And also too, like we felt horrible too
because we let that happen.
We're the custodians of those animals, and through our own error, is what's resulted in the death of a lizard. So, it's something that people are ashamed. It seems like to talk about their failures, particularly publicly. But if there's something that we can do to talk about. Now, when we've made a mistake or something like that can help educate somebody else, then it's probably not a bad thing. it might result in another lizard not dying, I suppose.
And we think the only way maybe the toad got through was a bird carried it and dropped it, because they're UV resistant tubs that we get from, we used to get from a big
Plastic company.
So the bottom is actually high enough, and we keep it all mowed around it, where it shouldn't be able to jump through. Like a toad theoretically shouldn't be able to jump through. There's nothing for it to jump onto to get the height up to jump in.
Yeah.
So we have no idea how it got in there.
So yeah, likely a bird, unfortunately, and yeah. So then, but that also prompted us then after that to put plastic roofs on on all the pits. So that way, then if something did get dropped,
like we have mesh lids on all the pits.
Yes, there's mesh lids, but then over the top of that, we've got a plastic roof that sits above that, and that plastic roof then prevents anything getting dropped on or anything.
Which has actually made it easier admittedly, to attach the shade cloth for summer, and then we just drop the shade cloth down in summer just to make it that little bit cooler.
So that the UV light comes through on the angles, right? So at the end of the day, right, it doesn't matter if it's in a slightly obtuse angle, the UV still comes through. You still get rain getting through on the edges as well. So you still get all the benefits, but you get less rain when it's incredibly heavy. It gives you a support structure for your shade cloth for summer. And so it works out quite well. So, we keep our parenties outside all year round. We put nesting material in there, which is dry, loosened hay, and give them the opportunity to really dig down into that so that they stay thermally insulated.
And then we cover the box like a mound on top of it as well.
And then cover over the top of that box that's full with hay, with more hay over the top to really provide that thermal insulation. And
pictures here, Scott. I don't know if these will help, mate. Anything to do with that?
Yeah. So this is in some of the pits that we've got outside. So this is a small box with a tube in it. So that's when we first do the pit. So they've got a concrete base on them. On top of the concrete base, then we put down a layer of drainage gravel, so it allows the water to dissipate. If you go to the next picture.
You didn't drink water. I had your gut removed and I got to do all that.
Yeah. Go to the next one. Yep. So inside, yep. The one before it. Yeah, that's it. So then you get these plastic tubs. These plastic tubs then got a foam box. Now we use foam boxes for the skinks. But then if we've got Varanus in it, then we'll use a plastic box that sits inside that foam box again to maintain it. And then otherwise, because the claws on the Varanus will just tear that apart. And then we've got a lid on the outside, so it still allows you to get to it. So you can still get to the animals that are sitting inside, but they're thermally insulated both from the cold and the excessive heat.
Having said that, though, they are intelligent. They do sit right in the middle of the fucking piping. So you gotta, and I won't go into the hide boxes because all the hay attracts cockroaches. So that's Scott's job. So I'll go from the other end, and Scott has to go from the end where all that bedding is.
So the other thing we learnt too is to put, rather than having a curved burrow entrance, we make sure we keep that tube nice and straight too, because it's a lot easier to get a rod down it if you're trying to poke something through.
Yeah. And what sort of temperature swings do you get? Just going back about keeping stuff inside, I'm really starting to, I've never done it, obviously coming from the UK, it's pretty hard for us to keep anything but natives and the European stuff. But you do get lots of challenges. I'm actually, when I first got here, I was so out of control with it. I didn't like it. And now I'm starting to actually prefer it outdoors for maintenance, and the animals like the scalation. I've obviously we've got a lot of tree monitors. I'm keeping the ones outside and keeping them inside. It's like two different lizards almost. In a lot of cases,
you'll feel the skin thicken on they'll feel harder and stronger. The muscular, they're more muscular.
The black is blacker, like the colors are deeper and brighter. It's insane. Like, you even provide UV lights and whatnot. You do the correct heating. You give them as big a cage as possible. You think you're doing the right thing for them. Then you put them outside and you're like, fuck, you poor bastards. What have I been doing for the last X amount of years?
I think the other thing that you notice as well is that their vision is completely different as well. They can see so much better. because the visible light, what we call visible light, is a bit of a misnomer. It's visible light for Homo sapiens only, not necessarily what they're looking at, right? So the scope of vision and what Varanus can see compared to people is probably a little bit different. A lot of reptiles can see certainly UVA, and they can also see a bit of infrared as well. So
there's
depending
that
on
funny meme on Facebook that shows that I don't know if you've seen it, you guys, but there's that the light wave curve. And it's like what animals can see and what humans can see, and obviously it just looks the same, making the point that obviously the animals can see more. But yeah, it's tricky in one way keeping stuff outside because you've got all these variables that you don't even think about. Obviously, you guys are way more experienced than I am. I've only been here 7 months and I'm learning stuff. But like even for breeding and stuff, for me now, I've got such a season now. Like the indoor monitors, I can breed, with what I think and how to cycle them. But now, like, we've got bow things out, so we've got so much stuff outside. It's really easy to make a plan now. It's like, well, it's rainy season for us now, so everything's sort of switched down, feeding less. And then as it sort of comes into, May, sort of April, May sort of time, we can feed heavy and compare stuff. And I got in here in May time. That's when all the tree monitors were laying eggs, and they literally switched as soon as the rainy season come. They literally switched off. So I actually think it's going to be easier in some ways to even breed stuff outside, but you do get a lot of challenges. And I can't believe how, just going back to this, why I brought it up, how cold tolerant a lot of this stuff is.
So this is the thing, right? Is that they can't. You imagine they're going to experience swings of temperature, right?
Yeah.
Now they will know where to go when it's incredibly hot. They will know where to go when it's cold. As long as you provide them refuges there that the animals can get into that will sustain them during that time.
And it's not really far out of their natural range to begin with.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. There's no point in putting something that can't handle
extreme heat or extreme
cold if you're going to be in those extremes, right? But at the same time too, right, your enclosure doesn't need to meet those extremes. There's a guy in the US by the name of Terry Phillip, and incredible reptile keeper, been around for a very long time. And to paraphrase Terry, is just because you might get snow where you get certain species of rattlesnakes doesn't mean to say you need to put fucking snow in their enclosure, right?
Yeah.
So,
so I thought that phrase actually came about because there was this chick. It was Facebook, obviously. It was a very long time ago. It was a lizard of some description, and she read that they are in an area where it snows, so she literally filled a fucking enclosure with snow.
Yeah.
That's how I thought that phrase came about.
Yeah, no, it was a thing on King Snake many years ago from Terry Phillip.
She was confused as to why they died.
Yeah, a bit cold. Yeah.
So to getting back to the temperature, so it gets down to about 0 overnight in winter, occasionally. Generally speaking, probably most nights in winter, overnight lows of
10 and under, maybe
anywhere between 3 and 10 degrees Celsius, and then daytime highs of 21, 22, usually. Okay. And then getting into summer, we've got up to 40, 42, 43 degrees. And then overnight lows of 26, 27, so,
but it's not as regular as it used to be either.
No, it can be a bit all over the shop. So the one thing that we do is we've got shade cloth that we put out, and when we use Easter, for us as a pretty good sort of moniker, is when we'll roll up the shade cloth in Easter, and we tend to put it down anywhere from the first couple of weeks of October to up to about the 1st of November is when we'll roll the shade cloth down. And so that'll partially cover the enclosures to go down that road so that, they're not getting as hot all day.
And I work from home too, so on a really hot day, I just go out there with the hose and let everything.
Spray 'em. Yeah.
How much rain do you guys get? Is it pretty bad, or that's what we struggle with? The temperatures over here is pretty stable. It does get cooler, obviously, but the rain is what we have to battle with a lot.
So we can get some incredible downpours. It's not quite tropical Indonesia downpours, but
we've had flooding a couple of times here.
Yeah. So that's it. That's out the front of our place, and that was after 300 mil in about 10 hours.
We had
12 inches of rain in 12 hours.
Yeah. Was that we had the Australasian Lapid book due. It was on the 19th of Feb, and it started to rain, and it started to rain really badly. The book was due the 19th, and Scott's out there a couple of hours. Yeah. You think it's good, but then you still go back and you double, triple check, and you make sure you've done everything, crossed your T's and dotted your I's, and is there something I could have done better or whatever right before you send it off?
Yeah.
And it's fucking flooding, isn't it? And how tall are the pits out the front? They're about
800 mil high. The solid area, the solid part of the enclosures out the front is 800 mil high.
Yeah, it's up there, isn't it? So Scott's out there right before we're supposed to send the book off, just getting lizard after lizard after lizard out of the pit, and they're all like, "What the fuck?"
Because the water came up, it went up 600 mil in regards to the flooding. It came up 600 mil in half an hour.
Yeah, so you do get it does rain.
Right.
That's like every couple of years. It has been. It was what the Great Floods of '74, and then it was 10 of.
So now we're basically got a process now with regards to it. So when if we're seeing anything greater than 120 mil forecast, we start looking at pulling animals out of pits and putting them into enclosures and putting them either inside the house or inside the snake building.
It's usually inside the house.
It's easier to bag up then before you're out there waiting in your undies with a head torch on, trying to put things in, get things into boxes and stuff.
And everyone around us is high set, so I was like laughing my ass off, thinking all the neighbours are seeing Scott just like a light in nothing but a pair of undies, just like hoiking lizards.
Yeah.
Not the best thing to be doing at that time of the night, but that's all right. It is what it is.
Good times.
Yeah. You got to like I said, everyone's like, "Oh, it's so easy outside," and it's like, yeah, in some ways it's really easy, and then like it's catch-22 all the time, and it's so hard when things it can really fuck up really quickly. From what I've seen, really quick.
Yeah,
outside.
so I suppose that there's a couple of things that you don't need to worry about internally, right? You don't need to worry about predators internally. So that's one thing.
Your enclosure. Going over your enclosure, your maintenance, like when you're feeding that, you can be a bit less pedantic inside because it's an escape-proof room. Outside, you've got to make sure the wire is top-notch, it's not rusting out anywhere, they haven't tried pushing through anywhere or anything like that.
Yeah. And then also too, you've got predators as well that you've got to be concerned about too. Are the predators that are going around, whether it be rats or other reptiles, carpet pythons are a problem here where we are. There's lots of carpet pythons come through here. We have lace monitors come through here occasionally as well. A lace monitor can go through a fairly light wire enclosure, which is perfectly fine for the animals that sit within it. It's not designed to keep an adult lace monitor out. So that can be a problem as well. So there's a lot of concessions that you need to be onto it. You also need to be very careful about how you build the enclosures. And
then it's also placement of the enclosure.
And then placement of the enclosures, movement of the enclosures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of things to take into account. But once you take those things into account, if you do it the right way, amazing way to keep them. It's so much better for the animals as well. And also too, you get to learn all these other things about them. Like we've got diamond pythons outside.
That's how I judge how to wash the clothes and whatnot. I don't listen to the weatherman. He's never fucking right.
You don't need to worry about that. If the diamonds are out moving around, we're going to get rain. So, it's pretty incredible how these things can pick up on slight air pressure changes. And so, we'll get things like that. But then the other thing is too, right, is they'll season and they'll cycle as well. You'll know when to pair things up because you'll be able to watch the lizards or you'll be able to watch the snakes, right? So, you know, we keep blue tongues outside and we got male certain things we keep separate from each other. So if we're watching the males and the males are suddenly like wall riding and pacing the cages really, really hard, that's the time to take the male out and put it in with the female.
Yeah.
Right.
It's also behaviours that you just don't see in an enclosure inside or a tub or whatever.
Yeah, I think too, right? We never bred land mullets inside.
We had them for 10 odd years. Never bred them.
Put them outside, bred them every year.
Yeah.
Instantly after they went outside too.
Yeah, that's strange. A friend of mine had some multifasciata. I think she kept inside for, and she managed to get them outside for, I think she was telling me 2 or 3 months. Just in bred them like really massive litter of these multifasciata. And like I said, I think just like you guys were saying, had them inside for quite a while, and just that switch or the goodness it got from being outside is what cracked them. So
I think it's a colour thing too. I think they see it, and even too, right? I mean, if you bring up some photos of the snake building, there's I'll tell you which one I'll look at.
Venomous room?
Yeah, so go to the one next to the pink thing.
That one.
Yep. Okay, so that there, you can see that sort of bright light there is actually from the skylights in the roof of our snake building. And so the heating source for those tubs there is actually at the back of the enclosure, not at the front. But you'll notice that all of those snakes are all at the front sitting in the sun.
Yeah.
Right.
There's four skylights, not in the corner, but like one in each corner, sort of thing. And you will see every animal in that room follow the light round from morning to night where they can.
Yeah.
They'll avoid the heat source, but they'll follow the light.
Yeah, again, funny you say that. The lady, her name's Dawn, who had those multifasciata, she's got actual windows in her room. She's literally said exactly the same as what you've just said there. They'll actually go up to it. They're inside, but they've got that window. They'll actually go up to it and bask in that natural sunlight.
They'll bark in it. If you go to the picture of the actual room.
Yeah. Also, too, what you will see that you won't see in an enclosure or a tub is the animals that change colour at night.
So you can actually see up the top there, you can see that what looks almost like a light panel. That's actually a window into the roof, through the roof there. And then, so there's one in each corner. So the one thing that was pretty incredible for us that we noticed, and I'll say this one bit and then Ty can talk about the rest of the stuff inside, because as I've taken over like I usually bloody do, is the moon phases. So at night, moon phases are obviously a fairly big thing for activity levels of reptiles. On a new moon, when there's no moon out, you tend to see a lot more activity in nocturnal species. When you've got a full moon, you don't see anywhere near as much activity. It isn't as effective in the forest as it is out in the desert country. But if you go to the desert on a full moon, you'll see fuck all when it's on a full moon. So, tip for the people that are planning their herp trips, planning around the moon phases. What we've found is exactly the same thing goes on. The animals on a full moon don't have much movement inside the snake building on a full moon, whereas on a new moon, we see plenty of movement. So everything will be moving around on there. So that was one thing that's made a huge difference to us.
Breeding as well, too.
The 10 years that we've been in that room now for 10 years, which is insane to me that it's already 10 years. But 10 years in that room, and we've noticed that obviously the deal shift of gradual change of the seasons has been really important. But then also too, the moon phasing has also been really important as well. And we've been able to use that to pair pair nocturnal species at the right time. So watching the males to see when the males are really moving, and then pair them on those new moon nights where they're most conducive and most comfortable for doing things like mating. So.
Definitely. It's a really good looking room. I wanted to get that out, by the way, because I don't think I said that. Really smart. Is it just Venomous you guys keep in there, or is it, do you have a mix? I can't remember what you guys did.
Inside the main room is mainly Venomous these days.
Yeah.
In the corner enclosures, they were set up for Varanus. So we had parenties in those, particularly when they were young.
We basically house everything inside for under a year. At least a year, it's inside, doesn't matter what it is. We'd rather be able to monitor it and find it with ease if we need to. We found that everything we put outside in pits reverts back to natural behaviour. The only things that are still tame as fuck, I reckon, are the blotchies.
Yeah, blotch blue tongues. Everything else wants to kill us.
We get the same with the captive tree monitors. We got like F3, F4 ones, put them outside, and then, you know, they're straight back to normal. Same with the captive bred babies, straight back onto it.
Do you do they rotate around the tree branches and stuff like that? Like wild ones do?
Yeah.
I mean, it is good to see because it's natural behaviour, but at the same time, when you want to actually monitor them, it's a pain in the bum.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're a bit like you guys, not for a year. We're raising a lot of the captive bred stuff, especially the tree monitors for like 3 or 4 months, and then if they haven't sold in that time, putting them into the outdoor enclosures then, just to see if there's any problems. It's quite hard, like you say, to keep an eye on the food intake when it's outdoors compared to indoors.
What sort of size is that in 3 to 4 months in a tree monitor? Is that 50% of adult size in that time?
Depends how much you smash them, Scott, to be honest. Yeah, you can get them up to, I don't know, what's that, a foot in 3 months if you really wanted to, but really probably 15 centimeters snout to vent, probably in about 3 months, 4 months maybe.
Yeah, okay.
The differences in countries, you're like, if they haven't sold, and here that just isn't a thing. Like, if they were so unattainable like 20 years ago, that it wouldn't be a phrase muttered in this country if they haven't sold when you're talking about a tree monitor.
We work on a quota, so even if we breed 100 of them, if we got a quota for 20 of them, that's all we can sell that year. So it's different again for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But even for the captive bred stuff, there's a quota. Same for the wild caught. So it's a tricky one. A lot of stuff we have to hold back until the next year. But going back to the growth rates, I don't like to get them too big too quick. So, I mean, I'd rather err on the smaller side. If they're kept singly, they get a lot bigger, a lot quicker. Just pretty basic stuff. We keep some of them in groups of 4 or 5. They'll take probably twice as long as the ones you keep singly. So
we grow a lot of our stuff slow.
We feed them like they would eat in the wild.
So it might mean that, they'll get a meal, and then 2 days later they'll get another meal, and then they may not eat for a week. And then at winter, they may not eat for 4 months or 5 months.
Yeah.
Right. So when they go down and they go down completely, they're down. That's it.
But anything under a year does get normal, consistent feeds until they get a bit of size to them.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of sort of room, I suppose.
Exactly the same as what we do here. I mean, the guys here have actually been feeding the pythons year round. I was like, well, we struggle to breed rats over here because it gets so warm. So we've got like a season for rat. Mice, they can go all year round, but the rats, I was like, well, we can shut them down like for 4 or 5 months of the year. Some of the Indonesian species, save a load of money. Not that it costs a lot, but save our rat colony, for example, and build that up a bit more. And less cleaning, less everything. So he's just literally, like you said, you can shut everything down, especially outside as well. Shut everything down. A lot of it doesn't want to eat. So
it's good for it too.
Yeah.
It's actually really good for it. They are meant to cycle. They are meant to have a break. We've got an olive python there that's upwards of 40 years old. And it looks like an old snake now, right? Yeah. But then you talk to other people and they've got olive pythons that last for 15 years. It's like it's lasted for 15 years because you kept it overweight the whole time, and you
in a small box that it couldn't move, and
it never got to use any muscles. It sat there in an enclosure and was a big fat sausage, and then it died. No surprises. If you have animals that are a little bit lean that go through that. They don't breed as readily. You don't get as many clutches. You don't get that, but you'll get clutches over 15 years or 20 years as opposed to
5.
5 or 6 clutches. And I think it's better for the animals as well.
Well, there was a paper out that proved not breeding every year
was good.
It lengthened the lifespan.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's insane what people do. I mean, I've done it with the monitors. Monitors are pretty productive, but then they get to a stage and you can see that they're knackering out. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather we're lucky here because we have everything coming on all the time. But when you have a smaller collection, unless you keep that stuff coming on, you should be retiring stuff all the time, pretty much. And I think the monitors is a little bit different. You can get 2 or 3 clutches out of them a year for a short period, and then you really need to retire them off if you want them to last. They will carry on. That's the thing with the monitors. You seem to be able to do it for 10 years, but get 4 clutches a year. I don't think
that's quite right. Sorry.
No, you're right.
They breed in the wild to keep the population going, to keep the species going. In captivity, there's no need to keep the species going like that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is too is that the females will breed to their detriment.
Yeah.
Too, right.
I can tell you how taxing it is to have one, let alone.
Well, the thing is that you see it in certain other species that people, when they get 2 or 3 clutches in a single year, it kills the female or gets the female to a point where they're almost dead because it draws calcium out of the bones of the female, takes it straight out of the skeleton.
It's also taxing on the entire body.
Yeah.
So again with pythons, it seems it takes a lot more out of a snake. I find. Some of the pythons, it takes a lot more. Again, if they're maternity incubating, that's a whole nother situation. But for a snake, the snakes always look a lot worse. It seems to take more out of them. I don't know if there's anything to that, but compared to a monitor, the monitors seem to get back on it a lot more. I think that's why they can keep breeding, where you get these snakes and pythons that do it once a year, but it seems to really emaciate them and take a lot out of them.
We weighed a red belly. We fluked it, and we got her the day before.
The day before she dropped a litter of babies, and she had the weight, the mass of the babies was greater than the mass of the snake that was produced. And
that was an eye opener. That was like fuck. Like you can see the difference, obviously, but to actually have it in numbers was like fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't breed every year anyway. Hey.
Yeah. I said I don't even know if how that's possible. It seems insane when you say it like that.
Yeah. But it was an eye opener. We felt quite bad.
Well, some species like ringed brown snakes, up to 170% of the body weight in the clutch size.
Wow.
Right. So it literally the snake and half the snake again in the clutch size in regards to weight compared to the weight of the female. So talk about breeding to death. That's what they can produce. So and then those things too on top of that can actually produce, they can double and triple clutch apparently as well. So crazy those going back to those overfeeding, even is those was it Matt that put up that one with that Ingram's brown? I can't remember if it was Matt. Matt Somerville with the Ingram's brown snake.
That was insane. That was a real eye opener to how much we were obviously overfeeding a lot of stuff, but I don't think he'd even been feeding those at all from what he'd said.
Those things on the black soil just have a whole nother level of retention of calories. You
want to stress about your welfare of your captive animal? Get one of them. Fuck, you're like it's not eating.
They're a pretty incredible snake to keep. Like they don't like
animal.
Stunning snakes, but they don't like eating.
Oh really? They just
okay.
Yeah, I've never
we've actually got some Ingrams that came from Matt.
They're the only thing in the snake room that pays no attention to you at feeding time.
Yeah, they couldn't give 2 shits.
Yeah.
Do they suddenly switch on or anything at a certain time of year, then off, or they just just don't.
No,
Really care?
every now and then you'll go in and you'll be feeding other things, and you'll get some reaction and go, "Oh, okay, well, it looks like you're hungry, or I'll give you something to eat."
But they're fair and far between. Fair and far. Oh fuck, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Infrequently, a little bit.
Sorry.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that does it. Sometimes I'm on here and I stutter, and you're like, and you can't get it out. But I'm glad someone else does it. That's all right.
But that's why we do a podcast, right? Because when we do the podcast, we can edit those stumbling blocks out. So
Because I do
Yeah,
the
yeah.
editing, I'm very conscious of what I say, and I try the hardest not to use filler words. But then I'm like, don't use a filler word. I realize that I've paused for like 7 or 10 seconds, and I'm like, fuck, you just sound like a moron. Continue the sentence.
Yeah, it's true. And these are live as well, which is like even worse. But it is what it is. At least we're putting content out, which might be good, maybe not. Any more about the facility, the Venomous stuff? No, Ty,
oh, look, any of the photos you want to go up, if they've got some questions, I'm more than happy to talk through them.
Let's go to the all one. I know you had pretty good luck with these. Ty, is this Wellesley or not? Or is this Ferris?
I'm sorry. I don't have my
That's
glasses.
Regosis, that one.
You got
keep
Wellesley
going.
on, man.
We do have Wellesley there. There will be Wellesley there.
I like my adders. We have a lot of them.
That's
Yeah,
why I
that's a
thought-
Wellesley. That's a Wellesley.
Yeah. You had some success with these. How many species of obviously you got a big venomous collection, that's what you guys are pretty well known for. How many species do you know how many you're working with?
We're working with just over 22 species of venomous at the moment. And then we've got variation within that as well. So there's probably a couple of other, there's probably maybe 1 or 2 more species that are sitting there within that group as well.
But to let Ty speak, these are one of your favourites, Ty. One of my favourites as well. I've been lucky enough to see a few of these. But what would they like to keep? And I think you've had some success with these guys as well, haven't you?
Oh, I don't want to rub it in everyone's face, but they're fucking awesome to keep. I don't know. I like my adders. So, yeah, he's a good boy. I don't know what you want me to say. They're good. They're not too fiery. Adders are quite easy to get eating when they're born. You know what I mean? Like they reflex feed. So it's not, a game of statues for hours after, standing there sort of thing. Fucking small.
Yeah.
Those.
Did you have to get them on lizards? Did you have to get them on lizards first or anything, or straight onto default?
Somebody cut up legs and.
Oh, really? That's too small to take like a pinky mouse. A pinky leg.
Legs. Yeah.
Pinky legs. So to give you an idea,
1.4 grams was the
smallest.
Yeah.
1.4 grams was the smallest unit. The largest unit was 2.1.
Oh, that's insane. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now to
my
put that in,
my little monitors are way more than that.
Yeah, so to put that into perspective, Pathensis, anywhere between 3.5 to 6 grams for a baby pygmy python. So these things are bloody tiny, and fragile too, as babies.
We found the black-headed ones weren't as strong
as the red ones for some reason, but yeah, so very, very small.
Obviously, coming
that
from
would absolutely suck dealing with little eyelash vipers that weigh less than a gram.
Oh my god, yeah.
Apparently, some of the other species of Bothriechis, like Nigraviridis and stuff like that, are even worse. So they're really tiny babies. We saw some incredibly small Icus as well when we were in Germany. So there is some small stuff out there, but I mean, at the end of the day, right? You feed them parts of pinky mice, whether it be legs or tails, initially just to get them moving, and then starting to feed slightly larger meals and keeping them warm and fairly frequently. It does make a difference.
Coming from where they come from, they need to be warmer than every other adder species.
Yeah, makes sense. Pretty fucking hot. It does get pretty cool there as well, though. I've been there when it's hot. I found them. Yeah, middle of the night, like real middle of the night, and they're super active, and it was fucking hot.
I think too the babies never really get cold either. So while even in winter, the babies aren't going to get that cold because they'll get down in amongst that gibber rock, and they'll just get that reflected heat all night.
Yeah, exactly.
So we made a mistake with them the first year that we bred them. We kept them like we keep all other Death Adders, and they go through, when it gets to winter, they go through a bit of a cooling. Rugosus babies, Hawkeye babies, Antarcticus babies don't have a problem with the temperature drop. These things in winter, temperature drop equals dropping the adders.
Yeah.
So they do not take a temperature drop until they become sort of, that long sort of thing. 10 inches long.
Interesting what you say about that gibber rock. That makes perfect sense. It's just a big heat sink. That's why it's pretty hot when you walk around at night. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh,
it makes perfect sense after the fact. Yeah. Once you realise afterwards.
Or you could just listen to your wife in the first place, but we won't go there.
Listening to life.
Hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about it until you said that. But yeah, that's exactly where they'd go. But yeah, you wouldn't know unless you know. What was the size of the litter on that? On
we've had
I think the first one was 12 with 4 or 6 sluts.
Yep.
So I'm in denial that we're in fucking December, so I can't remember that far back. I'd have to look at my notes.
It was 14, 12 and then 4. And then we had another litter of 11 and then 6.
Okay.
But the second litter was a fair bit bigger, eh?
Yeah, the babies were larger in the second litter.
We have this theory that first clutch, it's like a trial clutch, not with us, with the snake. Like,
yeah.
They don't really know what they're doing. If there's going to be, the only times we've lost any or there's been deformed animals has been in a first clutch with us.
Yeah. And we tend to see a slightly smaller clutch as well.
And sometimes they hold on to them for longer than they should.
Yeah.
Or they drop early.
So you might get 2 or 3 good babies out of a clutch of 12 or 15 eggs. In the case of taipans or black snakes or something like that. But then the following year, you'll get, a 95 or 100% fertility rate, and you'll get a good hatch rate and all the rest of it. The one thing that we have done, though, is that we've changed our incubation temps over the last 10 years. Our method. So we went from using vermiculite fairly strictly and incubating at about 31 degrees to going over water now. And now we go over water and we're doing about 28 degrees.
So what we use here, it's a decor bread bin. So they're about that big, and they actually have a white thing inside. And I think it's where you're supposed to cut your bread on.
Yeah.
So we turn that upside down. So it's like a stand, and then we put the eggs on that, and we put rocks. When it gets closer to hatching, we put rocks at the bottom, and the water level drops a bit, so that if something does come out early, it's able to swim on over and sit on the rock until we're able to get into the hurt room at whatever time that day.
And then we have pegs in between the eggs to stop any rotation of the eggs. But even then, egg rotation's another one that we find quite funny, is that everyone talks about that you can't rotate eggs. It's a load of shit.
I found it with monitors. You can turn them quite a bit.
So we took a taipan egg a couple of years ago, and I rotated it once a week. Did a quarter turn once a week on the egg all the way through and it hatched.
Yeah, fine.
So we're going to do that on a couple of more things when we breed things now. We're just going to take a random egg and just go, right, we're just going to rotate it and see what happens.
Yeah. What I thought with that, which probably it didn't make sense in my head, you rotated it all the way around. Have you thought of just doing it like a complete rotation and then a complete rotation instead of keep doing it? So it'd be like...
we'll give that a crack next time. I got no problem.
Yeah, I was just thinking... Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. I was just thinking, because you started rotating it around quite gradually, maybe, that it didn't affect it. Where if you just got one and really twisted it around halfway around for what it was meant to be, and then twisted it back, that might give you a different result. I don't know. I don't think it will. I think the egg rotation thing is not so bad. But when you said it on another podcast, I was like, yeah, but he's turning it round ever so slightly.
I know, but it's like everything, right? You want to try things gradually first.
Yeah.
I see DF Arboreals in the chats turned around and said that Dave Barker has done it with a python egg as well. I'm curious as to whether or not Dave did it the same, where he sort of rotated it slowly, a bit like I did.
But think about it. The clutches that come in when people ring up and go, I've just got a clutch of eggs. I don't know what they are. Could be snakes. Can you take them? And that person has disrupted them from where they found them.
Yeah.
You've got to get them home and whatnot. They're not in a stationary position the whole time. I guarantee you, if someone's thinking they're snake eggs, they're like shit, and they're just sort of thing. They're not going to carefully.
And I think too, right? The other side of it is that I think all of us at some point in time, if you've been keeping reptiles long enough, you can drop a clutch, or drop an egg or something like that. Well, there we go. So he told me at Dallas Zoo in 81 he dropped a chondro egg from a counter height and it rolled across the floor and it still hatched. There you go. So I tripped over many years ago and I spilled a clutch of eggs onto the ground and a few of them rolled around and all the rest of it. Half a turn a week. And so literally we just put them back and put them back in, and that's what we did. Now, yes, you could candle the egg. You could put a light onto it, see where the embryo is attached to, and then put it in the right spot and get it back in the right spot. A bloke who was a bit of a mentor of mine, Brian Barnett, has got this phrase that he's used for many, many years, is that, Scott, eggs are designed to hatch. Right?
Good eggs are designed to hatch.
Good eggs are designed to hatch, right? But realistically, right, if the eggs are designed to hatch, so they can take a little bit of movement and all the rest of it. Interestingly enough, there's a video that was put out by a lady in the United States. She's been breeding crocodile skinks, right? And
Nikki
Camp, is it Nikki Camp? Nikki Camp. And so she's been breeding crocodile skinks. They literally go in and they burrow down and they grab their egg and they rotate their egg. So the mother goes back in after laying the clutch of eggs 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month later, digs the egg up, rotates it around, and then reburies it again. Now, I have no idea why it would be doing that, but pretty interesting that it's got site fidelity, that it goes back to actually go back to where its clutch was and has some maternal instinct on it. But then also that rotation thing is something that stuns me as well. So, why they do it, who knows? But obviously those eggs are hatching out and things like that as well. So I wonder if there is actually so much of an issue that, or people are just bloody parrots and repeat the same thing they hear from everything else.
But I guess too, why they say don't move the eggs does make sense. If you've never done it yourself, it does make sense. It'll detach from the wall. So yes, it does make sense. And you want these eggs to hatch. So yeah, you are going to be careful with them. But like you said, they're designed to hatch. So I think that birds, they rotate theirs regularly. So
as DF is saying, yes, Nikki is writing a paper on it. We've seen the early versions of it. And so hopefully it'll be out soonish, I hope.
Yeah, she's done a lot of work. She's really nailed it with them.
Yeah, I think I've seen the video. Interestingly, I did hear, I can't remember who was saying it, that it relates more to turtle eggs and tortoise eggs, that rotation thing. I don't know if there's any merit to that.
They go through a diapause in some species as well, where they get either partially inundated or could get inundated, and then when they need that to actually go through the incubation in some certain species.
Yeah, like I said, the bird eggs, they get stuck to the side. That's why you need to keep rotating them. So I've had monitors even here hatch at the bottom and some hatch on the top where I haven't got the eggs the right way around. Do you mean I've just cut them out? And they hatch at the bottom. So I think it's interesting to whether there's a stage where it gets to and then you can't do it. So I personally think, because it's just a group of cells or whatever to start with, you can pretty much turn them within the first probably few weeks or so. You can actually turn them as much. And like I said, I've stumbled with bloody egg boxes and stuff. I don't mark the tops of the eggs. I just chuck them in. I've stumbled and they've switched and I've gone like that and put them back. But that's pretty early on. But I don't know if it affects it when you've got a full term one or something like that, and then you flip it, then you might drown it that way. I don't know.
Well, we have a mate. What monitor was this? The Band-Aid.
Oh no, I can't talk about that at the moment.
Oh, okay. Don't worry.
That's just something designed to hatch, but we've got something that we're riding up with somebody on a ruptured egg, and then going from there on that.
Okay, that's interesting. No, you have to be careful with Scott. You never know what you're allowed to say. Hi, Dan. That's you, mate. I'm like, did he say I can say that? Or this is not just you, Scott, but other people. You're like, oh, I better just shut up.
Or I do them without him, and I only know they've aired because he'll get home and he'll be like, what the fuck did you say that for? And I'm like,
Right, I'm going to leave the books and stuff till last. This is a cool picture of you, Ty.
Is it?
Tie with a tie?
Yeah, tie with a tie.
There we go. Oh, bloody thing. That's pretty cool. That's just a Taipan, I guess. Or I say just a Taipan, but that's a serious snake.
Yeah.
Me or?
Yeah, it's a serious keeper too, mate. Look, coastal taipans aren't big demons. They can be if they're not managed correctly. But at the same time, they're absolute sweethearts too.
I think fluidity. That's not a word, is it?
Sort of.
Fluidity with your handling.
Natural movements, no shaking, no jerking, no gentleness goes a long way with that species.
Yeah, definitely. They're probably better than we get the Canai, obviously. I don't know if that's even still a thing. The Papuan Taipan, basically.
They're a colour variation. That's all they are.
Yeah, maybe not. They're just what's the Latin on them?
Currently it's Scutulatus.
Yeah, but
it's still a subspecies. It is technically still valid. The paper that looked at sinking them retained them on the basis that they do have a certain look to them.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is that they do turn up on the tip of Cape York as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So that they can be sort of greyish with a reddish streak down the back as well. And Canny as well, in New Guinea, don't always have a red stripe. So they can be all black as well.
Definitely.
Or dark grey too. So
What I was going to say with them compared to like the inlands and some of the others, at least they're pretty mental all the time. I'd rather that than some of the mambas and stuff that you work with are absolutely fine 1 minute and then completely spaz the next. And so I found that with inland taipans as well. Like I said, I haven't worked with proper coastal taipans, but at least they're pretty mental all the time, so you know where you're at. Where an inland can be like a corn snake basically, and then all of a sudden go completely nuts. I don't know if you found the same, but that's what I found.
The worst venomous snake from a handling point of view that I've ever had was an inland. It was a fucking Jekyll and Hyde of snake.
Is that Brad?
Yeah, the one that Brad had. Yeah, it was just an absolute mental case of a snake. One thing though we found with taipans in particular, keep them at the right temperature and they're a much easier snake to deal with.
Okay.
Mistreat the animal though, and they'll remember it.
Yeah, they've got a memory to them. They remember individual people.
Yeah.
So, the way I handle a particular snake or the way Ty handles a particular snake, they're usually pretty good with us. But then if we get someone else come in that is looking after the collection while we're away, those same snakes will be a lot more of a handful for those people. So that's an interesting thing. The interesting thing, particularly with taipans, though, is that we find that even a 2 or 3 degree temperature change will be enough to have a snake that goes from being absolute nasty as hell to being quite easy to manage. And if it's sitting between, in the case of inlands, if you've got your inland sitting anywhere lower than about 31 degrees, you'll tend to have inlands that are a little bit snappy and a little bit bitey. As soon as they get to sort of 32, 33, they calm right down. My theory on it is, and it's obviously like everything, it's just a theory, but my theory is that the snake feels more comfortable at that temperature. It feels like it can defend itself more adequately at that temperature. And so as a result, it's less defensive and just more calm. And that's the thing. A lot of people go, oh, that's a nut snake. I'd prefer it was a bit cooler so it's easier to work with. It ends up being actually the exact opposite. So
yeah.
Also, too, we've got enclosures on one side of the wall that have perspex doors, but we have grow out tubs where they go from hatchlings through to yearlings, and then they go into the larger enclosures. And they seem to calm down a hell of a lot more, don't they? When they hit the perspex tubs, it's
yeah. As soon as they can see better, the snakes are a lot more.
They're calmer.
A lot calmer.
Yeah.
And so there's something to be said for enclosures that are clear, so the animals can actually see you, and they get used to your movements, and then they don't get upset with your presence. The other thing that we've noticed, obviously, with that with the skylights above, now that the animals can see properly, we find that the animals are much better behaved. They can see better. They're a lot more.
Yeah.
They're quicker to move. They can see better, but they're also, I think it's great.
Definitely. I just want to get back to, I missed a question from Frizy. There we go. Jumping back to the herping stuff, which you did at the beginning, Frizy, so you might want to go back to that. But we didn't get into geckos. What's your favourite gecko to find in the wild? Well, favourite gecko, and then favourite gecko to find in the wild.
For me. Chameleon geckos there's such an old species. A Carphodactyla, they're probably 30 million years old in regards to that grouping, and so different to see in the scrub. They're like a leaf-tailed gecko that doesn't have all of the camouflage to them. So chameleon geckos are the most interesting ones to see in the wild for me. And then captivity-wise, the Oadurabella, the golf velvet geckos are probably the prettiest geckos, the most interesting geckos I've kept personally, I think.
I'd say that too, for the captivity, the personality. You remember when we were taking a photo? So we were trying to take photos of the last one we had because we were moving it on. So we thought we'd get some nice photos, obviously, because it's a lot easier if you own it than finding one. Wasn't sitting still for the photos. So then I got my phone out and just whacked a couple off because I don't have the patience that Scott has, and went to put him back. And I'm looking at my photos, and all of a sudden he's just taken a flying leap, landed on this hand, and he's just sitting there intently staring at the camera. It was like he was looking at photos of himself, right? He was literally looking at a photo of himself on the camera and sort of threw him. So whether it was a reproductive thing, it was triggering him or something like that, who knows? For me in the wild, sorry,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're right.
Did you put any pictures of them up, Scott? There's a leaf tail on here, I think.
There is a leaf tail there, but Carfos, probably not. But I can send one to you if you want.
For me in the wild, it's leaf tails. I just love the way that they blend in. It's the perfect camouflage.
I'll send you a Carphodactylus photo just while we're talking. And then leaf tails for you. And then in regards to favourite monitors, favourite to keep, parentheses, favourite to see, glebos.
Have to be Australian. We've had a couple of interactions with Komodos and do quite like the Komodos, and obviously keeping its parentheses.
Nice. Yeah, you're cheating with the parentheses.
And we have had a few lace monitors that have come and said.
Well, I think you've knackered your connection up, Scott. Scott, you there?
Sorry.
Sorry, I think that's something that email or whatever you're doing. Knackered your,
we're here.
Maybe don't touch the dinosaur.
I just turned it off so it doesn't do it now.
It's a dinosaur of a computer.
Right, is there any more
Carphodactylus at some point in time?
Yeah,
that's fine.
do that. It's been so good. Every guest I've had pretty much since the start, because they've all been far away and stuff. This has been the best connection we've had. So don't want to mess it up. Right, so as we
let's now that you've said that, I was all going to go to shit. You know that.
Yeah, of course. Is there any more pictures on here, Scott, that you want to bring up or Ty? There's an interesting one of a corn snake. I'm guessing that's invasive.
Yeah,
That's
I want to talk
corn.
about. I'll talk about the corn snake. That's fine. Happy to talk about that. If you throw the corn snake up.
Is that a corn snake?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's a corn snake that turned up in on the Gold Coast. That particular individual. Corn snakes are a bit of a problem over here. It's a snake now that has actually become an invasive species here in a few locations. So mainly Western Sydney, there's a location there that people are finding reproductive corn snakes now. So yeah, a bit of a
So it's not just a dumped animal or an escaped pet; they're actually breeding.
Yeah. Looks in good condition, that one. Pretty nice.
Yeah. Maybe bring up a few of the books. We can talk about the books briefly, I suppose. I'm not sure what the time limit is either, by the way.
No time limit, mate. I'll let you
Oh,
ramble
good.
on.
All right.
I'd
That's
never
fine.
say that to Scott. Jesus.
No. I haven't had a chance to look through, and some of these species I probably don't even know what they are when it comes to the Eipper. Is that a collector, maybe?
Yeah, there'll be a collets in there for sure. There's all sorts of stuff there.
Yeah, I'll just flick through a few of them.
So that's
and
a
then we'll
wild. That's a wild collet snake from near Winton.
nice. They're pretty hard to come by, from what the guys I know that have looked for them.
They are very hard to come by, living down in the black soil plain. So they live down in the black soil. They go into the things, but they've got these massive great heads on them, obviously designed for eating monitors and other snakes.
Yeah. Do you guys keep these or not?
Yep. Yeah. We've kept collets for years. So.
We
These
bred
are
them, and I had never bred them before. Obviously, the venomous snakes came when Scott came. And I was when they're quite young, they're vividly red, like they are stunning compared to the orangey sort of shabby colours that they are when they're adults. And I was so excited to see these bright red babies, and all of ours were mostly black with a little bit of red. And I was just like, that's not what I wanted to see. And everyone else is like, oh my God, look at the amount of black. And I'm like, I just want red.
Yeah, I'm surprised these have turned out. There's some in the UK now, but these have been floating around Europe for a while. That's one that was like I never thought we'd see.
Amazing snakes.
What else have we got on here?
There's all sorts of, that's a butler snake there, a spotted mulga snake. That's a juvenile.
Nice. Really nice.
Mulga snake, Shedecus australis, or a king brown. There you go. There's a bearded dragon as well.
He's like, get the beady off my screen.
Bloody bearded dragon.
Thousands of them.
That bearded dragon that wasn't sitting on a hammock, and there was sand as well there where that lizard was.
No.
Say again, Scott. I missed that.
There was no hammock in sight, and there was sand on the ground where that lizard was.
I was saying I've probably seen more bearded dragons than you guys, and probably a lot of people in Europe probably have compared to you guys. But yeah, there's no hammocks and stuff. Seeing them in the wild is definitely cool. Is there many people keeping them in Australia? They didn't even seem that.
Yeah,
Viticeps. There's a lot of people keeping Viticeps, and there's a bit of a morph market happening on those now. I can think of nothing worse, to be honest. But if certain people like them, and good on them for it.
I think too, they're like what a parent will get a child, a blue tongue or a beardy, when they want a reptile straight up.
Yeah. No, I just didn't know if it. Obviously, the whole of the rest of the world, that's like the number one pet. I didn't know if it was the same in Australia for you guys. That's interesting.
Yeah, very commonly kept. That's a brown tree snake in the centre of Brisbane.
Oh wow, it's a nice one as well.
Yeah. That's a
great photo. That's a cracker photo.
Yeah, it's a nice pick, that one. I quite like that one. So it took a bit to. I like taking photos, and I like the technical side of taking photos as well. There's a bit of a few headaches trying to take that photo.
Whereas I just like getting a nice photo and walking away.
It be a curse. I wish, like before I was exactly the same. When you get into photography, it becomes a curse because you're never happy with the shots, and sometimes you have to walk away from stuff. But there we go.
Well, that's got all the technicalities of doing a wide angle and then doing it at night.
Yes,
and then trying to have dual lighting systems on it to light the animal and then also light the thing. So that's
That's Gleba Palmer habitat.
I was going to say,
I would
is
just
that,
sorry.
So Glebo habitat, but you also get Acanthurus there.
Nice.
Storai ocreatus. Oh, well, sorry, Storai ocreatus now. And Parentes too. You get Parentes in that too. And Panoptes.
Nice. That looks good.
would-
Is that round Isa, did you say, Scott?
Yeah, that's south of Isa there.
I would like to apologise for the dog barking in the background.
Oh, you're all good. You're all good.
I'm not going to apologise. It's like a quintessential part of our podcast. You get the dog
That's
marker
how
in
you
the
know it's,
background.
that's how you know it's genuine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, your books, because that is one thing you are definitely well known about, and also Ty can speak to a lot of these as well. So where do you want to start? I think is it 12 books you've done total? I added up earlier.
11, I think it is.
11.
Yeah,
Okay, still an amazing amount. I'm still trying to write my first one, like I spoke to you about, Scott. So,
well, whenever you need some help, mate, more than happy to help you with it. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just got to start doing it. I'm a procrastinator. I've got all the ideas and everything, but I won't do it. But then when I do start it, I will really start it, and then that'll probably take over my life. So I'm trying to get all the reptiles sorted, wait for everything to be, calm down, and then really start trying to smash it out. But what was the
work with a plan, mate? That's the yeah. So Ty doesn't like a plan. I'm very regimented in that regard.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've been speaking to Robert Sprackland. Obviously, he's a big monitor guy. He sent me over some ideas. It's all good to get ideas off people, and then and say, oh no, I don't really want to do it like that way. Do you know what I mean? That's like another way of doing it. It's like, well, yeah, that's a good idea, but it's not actually how I want the book to go. And he had some brilliant ideas. But yeah, I'll procrastinate forever. My big one has been like getting all the photos first. That's been my excuse for it. Okay, well, I can't write the book until I've got all the photos of everything, but I'm getting to the stage where I've got most of the photos and I still haven't written it. So yeah,
you can still find an excuse to go and take more photos, mate.
I'll give you a tip. Don't waste a photo. Whatever you see something and you're like, okay, it's commonplace, still take a photo of it.
Oh yeah.
You'd be surprised at when you're actually writing.
Yeah.
What you might want to illustrate, and then you're like, oh, I didn't take a photo of that, and that actually hasn't happened since. Like, never waste an opportunity for a photo.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. Yeah, a lot of people that I've spoken to, that seems to be, they seem to do the text and everything fairly easy, and the photos seem to be a bit of a challenge afterwards. So that's what I was making the excuse. I'm going to get all my photos first, but it's just an excuse. I just need to write, and I'm just being bone lazy.
Can we just go back to a comment there from DF Arboreals at 9:53? I just want to, if you can highlight that, I just want to talk about that for a second.
Some different to you, mate. That one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say that's absolutely fantastic. People should never move forward on Venomous or even within Venomous to things that they
I think
aren't comfortable.
Actually,
if they're not comfortable in working with something, then don't do it.
And respect for owning it. Like, I don't like brown snakes, and I freely say that, and so many people look at me like I'm a moron, but I don't. To me, they're unreadable. Yeah. So I would prefer. I also have an autoimmune disease, so I don't exactly know what a bite's going to do. So I would prefer to work with things that I can read a lot better than something that's unpredictable.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose the thing is that just because you think there should be this progression, there doesn't have to be. No. It can always be. You just be happy doing what you want to do. If you're interested in keeping green tree pythons, or you're interested in keeping tree monitors or whatever, just because everyone else is keeping emerald tree monitors or saxicollis rock monitors or something like that, it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean to say you need to do it either. Be happy with what you're doing, and you'll tend to enjoy it more. But then on top of that too, you'll put more into it as well.
I think the animal gets better care because you actually want to look after that animal. It's not something you got because everyone else has got, and you feel pressured into getting it because they're popular.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go back to the books. What was the first book? I have to be honest.
First, if you go to just bring it up, and I think it should be roughly in order.
That one. Let me try and zoom.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, so that was the first one that I put out in 2012. So I had two books come out at the same time as part of the Guide to series. Danny Brown wrote
four lizard books at the same time. I did lapids and colubrids as well as frogs. And then a mate of ours, Adam Elliott, did turtles and pythons. And so the reason they were done is that the Australian the Australian reptiles didn't really have a decent book in captivity for the stuff that was there. And so we had the opportunity to do a series on those. And so that's what we did. So that's what kicked off the writing side of things for me.
There was a small print run on each of those. She only did 2,000, and it went from I'll reprint them to no, I'm not reprinting them. So that book started off at $75. And I think at one point I saw it go for like 1,500 American.
Yeah, it's ridiculous now what it's selling for. So
we thought it would drop when the Australasian Lapids came out because it's a newer version, but it hasn't.
Oh, yeah, they can be good investments. We'll get to that a bit with your bookstore and stuff, but yeah, we'll do a shameless plug for that later. Let's just go on to this. Is this the latest one or not?
So this is the latest one.
That's the Princeton version. We don't have that here. It's only stock.
Well,
it's only...
we kind of do because
it's not for sale here. It's not for sale here. Princeton are only able to sell it in the North America, I believe.
Okay.
So that's released in the US in February 25.
Oh, nice. So that's literally talking. Do you want to go into a little bit of what you can on that without ruining it?
So
yeah, we can talk about that. Yep.
It was a bit of a kudos for me. I'm just trying to phrase this without being cunty.
I'll just phrase it. So basically, Ty's the lead author on this, and so she just wanted to boss me around. And
here I realise it's not this way in the States or the UK for the most part, but here it's Scott. I'm pretty much. Not everyone does it, but I am mostly invisible for Scott. There have been quite a few instances where we've been writing together. I've reached out to somebody for photos or data, and I've been left on read. So I've said something to Scott. Instantly, Scott gets a reply.
I always see you guys as a pair, but Scott's more vocal, so it's easier to get hold of Scott, is the way I see it. But like I said, bring Ty on. Obviously, you can't just have you run on the whole time. So, but yeah, there's a bit of prejudice. I think there's a bit of prejudice against women in herpetology, and especially Australia or worldwide. Do you think?
I see some of it. I think it might be like. Scott is a lot more interesting than I am. I get awkward rather easily, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Whereas Scott will just talk with a mouthful of marbles underwater, in his sleep, whatever. So I get that there are a lot of people that prefer Scott to me, and I don't have a problem with that. But the downright sexism, that I sort of have a bit of a problem with. You call it out, and you're the one with the problem, though. So... but so that was the first reptile guide in 21 years that Princeton picked up, and it was lead author was a chick, so I was sort of like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you've got just as much knowledge in a lot of stuff than Scott has, and it shouldn't really matter. I think we're at the day and age now where, you know, if people and like to put books and stuff out, and like even these podcasts and stuff, is like takes a lot of work, takes time out of our day and all the rest of it. Like, who gives a fuck if it's a girl or a boy? I just want the content. Do you know what I mean? So
you should be judged on you as a person, not the bits between your legs. Yeah.
I think so. I think it's, you know, in some ways, there is some underlying misogyny that sits out there within the reptile keeping thing. We are getting away from bald-headed, bearded people, I suppose, with tattoos and things like that. And, the evolution of what a reptile keeper looks like these days is quite different. At the same time, though, I think in some cases in regards to Ty, because I am pretty vocal and I am a bit of an extrovert in that regard, and I am quick to jump on social media and talk with people and all the rest of it. It's a presence thing as well, I think, in this particular case that doesn't help.
Yeah, but you gotta understand like the Nature for You business page, we get messaged you know, can you help me with this? What temperature do I need my eggs at? When should I pair these together? So I'll answer it. And then they'll be like, oh, I wasn't talking to you. I want Scott's opinion. Or can you ask Scott? Is that what your husband said? Yeah. So, and I also get that in my face as well. So, and I'm sure a hell of a lot of other women do as well. So that's where it comes from, me not wanting to be all over social media, not wanting to voice my 2 cents, because it does wear you down after a while.
Do you know, I've never even really thought of it, because I'll just get information.
You wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I thought we were all at the point, especially the reptile side. If you've got good information, then I'll listen to it, no matter who you are. If you've been doing it for 5 seconds or whatever. Some of the best people we've had in the reptile world, like one of my mentors, Dawn, I was talking about earlier, she's a fantastic woman keeper. She's never really mentioned it to me. Maybe I've never asked. Maybe that's a bit ignorant on my part. But you got Tracy Barker. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Probably definitely did just as much as Dave. And I think Scott always puts you with him. Do you know what I mean? It's never just Scott doing it. It's always Scott. Yeah. It's like, that's really annoying to hear that. But yeah, bloody people.
Yeah.
Eh?
Anyway, it is what it is. But I think too, right? It's interesting too. You touched on a thing about experience. It doesn't matter. You can have people keep reptiles poorly for 40 or 50 years. It doesn't make, just because they've been doing it for a bloody long time doesn't mean to say they're doing it well. At the same time too, doesn't also mean that they're doing it poorly either, right? The people that just come into it, sometimes they can have some fantastic ideas because they're not looking through rose-colored glasses. They're not assuming what things should be. They're making their own conclusions based on what they're seeing, as opposed to what we think we're already knowing. And, you know, the rotation of eggs and stuff like that is something we were talking about before. Temperatures, et cetera, you know, there's these cookie cutter approaches to keeping reptiles, and it works great. But at the same time, if you can be open to listening to other people and learning from other people, it doesn't matter how long they've been doing it for, you'll learn more as well. And so, you know, we both make an active effort, I suppose, to listen to everybody, listen to everyone's opinion, and then use that to make up our own opinion moving forward on things. So take every piece of advice we can. Don't necessarily treat it as gospel, but then incorporate that into our ideas moving forward on things.
And just touching on that 40 years of keeping, sometimes the people that have been keeping that long aren't open to change.
Yeah.
And okay, it's not everything we've come forward in, but a lot of things we have, like lighting, knowledge on breeding, husbandry, lighting, heating.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to move forward with the times and not go, well, you know, I've kept this way for 40 years. It's worked.
I get stuck in that loop sometimes, though. I'm like, well, it's worked for me for that long, and I won't listen. But I try not to be like that. It's a difficult one to
little changes, little tweaks.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Right. So I'm happy to change anything and adjust anything, but I'll do it slowly and I'll do it gradually. I'll do a little bit at a time. And
that's an insight to my married life right there.
I'll like to change things slowly because I want to see what that cause and effect is, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, I think too, right? It's being conducive to and thinking about different things is important. UV over snakes is something that, you know, it can be a dirty conversation for people at times because it's hard to put UV over the top of animals in racks, right?
Definitely.
And yet the evidence is pretty clear that there's a benefit to bone density in regards to exposing snakes to UV light.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we're transitioning our enclosures, all our enclosures, over to UV. So they're all going to have UV at some point in time.
And I must admit, coming back from Germany, we both decided we would rather keep less and keep better. Bigger, I mean, they're not in small enclosures now, but bigger enclosures, bioactive, like the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah. And thanks, Freezy. like the sentiment.
Oh, I've got my glasses on. Give me a sec. I can read that now.
Anyway.
Thank you.
We'll get back onto the
Kudos
books.
to your
We'll
wife
get back
too.
onto the books, eh?
That was a really good tangent into telling us what's not going on with this book, which I don't know if
Yeah.
we're allowed to talk about or not. Just
No,
give
we
us
can
a-
talk about that. If we go to the next one, I think is I don't know, what's the next picture? No, that's Lizards of Australia. Bloody hell. Yeah, next to the tie. The one next to the tie.
I think I had them all in a thing, just books.
Oh, there we go.
This one? This one?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, bring that one up. So that's the inside of the book. That's what it looks like on the species account. So the species accounts have got maps, identification, there's keys,
Pronunciation, type, locality.
Yeah, etymology. There's a whole heap of stuff in these things. So it's not just a field guide to the snakes of Australia, but it also covers a lot of the biology and ecology as well.
So we are used to the smaller Jumbify books, which I'm sure you'll pick up, like the lizard one. I'm sure you'll pick them up in a minute. And they have a set format which we have to follow. We can't deviate. The closest we've got to deviation was the photographers were initially in the front page, and then after a fair bit of begging and pleading, we got them under the photo. Actually, Peter did that, but that one, there's no series, so we were able to put in what we wanted to. And I'm not picking on anybody else's field guides, but I think a lot of the field guides out, well, here especially, aren't overly helpful for someone that's just starting out. They're just learning how to herp in the bush, and it's space. There's a restriction of space. I completely get it. Because we had no restrictions, I was like, fuck it, let's put in, what did you want to know when you first started out? And that's how we tried to write that book.
And show the variation in the species and stuff like that as well, and subspecies. So yeah.
Say, for example, an eastern brown in one state will be a completely different looking colour and pattern or whatever to another state. And if you're in Victoria and you've got one in your hand and you're in Queensland and it looks completely different, it's not really helping you.
Yeah.
So we tried really hard to illustrate that. Yeah.
I've run into that coming in, especially with some of the brown snakes and even the shooter and stuff like that. If you got one picture in one book and you're flicking through going, oh, there's got to be more, and there isn't, it's difficult. Does this cover every single species in Australia?
Every Australian snake, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Including the island territories as well. So it's got Christmas Island, COCO Scaling Islands as well.
Fantastic. Right, where do you want to go to now?
If you go to Australasian Elapids, which is the one next to keep going at that one. Yep.
Yeah, I was gutted. I don't know why I didn't. I picked it up at Houghton. I think it was Cam the first week or whatever, and then Houghton afterwards. I picked it up and I put it down and then never picked it back up. But I had to flick through, and this is a good book. I need to pick this book up.
I know a bookshop.
I just tried to send Gavin just tried to send his book over to me, and then it goes to Jakarta and gets lost and got sent back. So maybe if I'm in Australia, what I did with Gavin is I met him in Darwin and he handed it over because loads of things go in the post over here, unfortunately. But
okay.
The
post.
So that book there, that's I suppose in a lot of ways like the evolution from that Elapids and Colubras book that I did 10 years earlier. I got asked many times about maybe producing a revised edition or something like that. And the publisher that we worked with initially was very difficult to work with. And so we sort of ummed and ahed a little bit, and then it sort of got to a point where it was too far gone anyway. And there were so many changes in how you keep between
products
what I was doing when
well.
I did that compared to then, and I was like, okay, well, let's think about redoing it. And from our point of view, the Chimera publications are probably some of the best reptile keeping publications that are out there. They don't necessarily follow a set format, but the quality of the publications has always been good. And so I ended up just dropping an email to Andreas and said, would you be interested in something like this? This is what I'm sort of proposing. And then I gave him a species account, and he said, that's fantastic. How quickly can you get it done?
Actually, that's not what he said. What he said was pretty cool. What he said was, I would be honoured to have an author of your caliber on my... And I was just like, oh, how cool is that?
Bloody honoured. I'm just another snake shit Cleveland keener like everyone else. So we decided that we'd obviously, because Ty and I keep the animals together, we'd write it together. That presented some challenges.
Fuck, he's anal. Oh my god. I have ADHD as well, and I know it drives him insane. I look at what I do and I think, that would probably frustrate me if it wasn't me. I can't go from A to Z. Even cleaning the hurt room is it causes arguments. We generally don't do it together anymore. I can't.
I move around the room methodically, logically.
Yeah. I can't.
Top to bottom, left to right, all the way around. Yeah. I don't miss anything. I can't miss anything. Maximum efficiency.
I don't miss anything.
No, but I'm not saying.
So I will do.
I've got to be in order. It's got to be in order, and I need plans and lists to tick off. So yeah, you'd be a nightmare for me to work with as well.
Yeah, I got to do.
Look, it's all. There's so much to get into one place. It must be insane to do it like how you're saying, all over the place, not just tick stuff off.
One day I'll start off with what's dirtiest. Another day I'll start off with what I might want to take photos of that day. Another day I'll start off with whatever I want to play with that day. It gets cleaned. It does take a bit longer. But for me, if it's not fun, I lose interest in it so fast. And that's not something I can
her
lose
writing is
interest
the
in.
same. So she'll start a chapter on this and then do a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this. And I'll
as long as it
slowly have a mental breakdown.
And I'll be like, how can you not see what's done? Look, it's very fucking clear. And he's like, you don't do it that way. And with the cleaning,
I usually start in the room where I most want to be and then work my way around. But for a book, like I said, that to get to, I think it'd be right if you're on your own. Obviously, it works because you guys do it. I can see Scott's side of things.
I can see it too.
Yeah, trying to get it in one place, I'd be having to tick things off and like, right, that's done today, that's done. But obviously, you guys make it work, which is a credit to you both. I don't know how you do it.
I use spreadsheets, mate.
And I give him shit about using spreadsheets.
It's literally, she has a highlighter and she just highlights the section that she's done. And then I can go back to it and go, all right, okay, that's been sorted out. And then I don't have to worry about it. So at least there's a semblance of order and a semblance of way I can tick things off. Because, I'm probably a little bit on the spectrum the other way. So where I am a little bit obsessive and where I really want to have, and it's funny, right? It's actually more common in reptile keepers than people realise, right? We're all a bit of a different breed. And we just laugh it off as being, we're just animal people. But animal people tend to be the same in that regard. They both seem to be a little bit eccentric and they tend to follow, they've got a passion for collecting things or whatever that might be or keeping things and stuff like that. So yeah.
Definitely.
That's right.
And,
good.
This obviously went all the Australian lapids. I think you did some of the Papuan stuff as well, didn't you?
So we chose to do Australasian lapids. So almost all of the species that are in that book are also found in Australia, with the exception of Micropicus ikihika and a couple of the species of Death Adder. But the husbandry of those Death Adders is identical to the Australian ones anyway, for the most part. There's some differences in ecology and differences in litter size. Micropicus was the thing that was significantly different. They are similar in their management to Cryptophis and a mega-sized Cryptophis or a very large Glyphodon. But at the same time, there was also a really interesting journal article that we obtained from Moscow Zoo on the keeping and breeding of that species at Moscow Zoo. So the reproductive information came from Moscow Zoo. That was the one exception, I suppose, to the rest of the book.
I'd be interested in seeing that paper. We used to send a lot of stuff to Moscow. I wonder if it come from here. This farm.
I'll send you the paper. I've got it there.
Yeah, I'd like to know the keep. Like I said, Bungie, who owns the farm, has been sending stuff there for years. So I wonder if it was one of the ones that come from here, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, they're a special snake.
They're a beautiful snake. I think there's a species complex.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, we even found it on the last trip I just did with.
I reckon there's 3. I'm pretty sure there's 3 of them. So
we found the ones on Salawati, which were like the normal ones. You got a mainland papa, which are like black and white, and then as you go to Wygo, they're completely black, and they did look just a bit different anyway. Not just the color, but just like they were nowhere near as big. And not that we found loads of them, but the one on Salawati, which is obviously like right next to the main was a big proper snake. It reminded me of like one of your guys's like King Browns or something like that. The structure of it, big massive head, and we've seen a lot of smaller ones on Wygo. But yeah, very cool. But yeah, this is a proper book as well. When I picked it up, it was like a
little weapon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a proper book, which I like. And that Chimera.
It's the Latin pronunciation should be a hard K.
Yeah.
So it should be Chimera.
I don't think I've picked up any of their books and they've not been any good. They're just literally exactly what you want. And your one, from what I saw flicking through it, fit just into that, which is amazing. Do you want to pick any of these other ones up, guys?
The other ones are the Naturalist Guide series. So they're a much smaller book. So I suppose there was a book that came out in Australia in the late 70s, early 80s that was published by Angus and Robertson called Australian Snakes of Australia, Lizards of Australia, Turtles of Australia. And those ones were almost like the first reptile books that people would have. They were also the books that the farmer would have, or the outdoors people would have, and things like that. They had good information in them, but they were a smaller book. And so it was, from our point of view, if these ones, we wanted photos of every species, and we wanted photos that were clear for Dingo, but it was only a small amount of information. It was enough basically for basic identification, and basically just a general introductory type guide, but also something that would suit a general naturalist or a farm person or just your general person, as opposed to the field guide to the snakes of Australia, which is a much more a much more authoritative text, I suppose.
And I think too,
we also did Frogs of Australia as well. That I wrote with Peter Rowland in that case.
The price point too is good. It's like $30. So it's a nice little gift for someone just starting out, or it's cheap enough to throw in the glove box. It's cheap enough for a farmer to have on the shelf to see what's on his property. The price point is good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Well, let's do a shameless plug for your bookstore.
Yes.
Get that out there. I've got a good tangent because I listened to one of your podcast episodes the other day, and you've actually written a book with them. So I'll bring that up, and then we can end on that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, check your plug out for the bookstore. You're actually working with some guys in Germany with Chimera.
Yeah, so we work. Yeah, so we work with we retail the Chimera stuff. Basically, it's so expensive to get stuff from Europe to Australia in regards to the post. We were talking to Andreas while we were there, and
he asked if we'd on sale, and we always on sold our own. Can I say? Yeah, okay. So I never know what I'm allowed to say or not. So we on sell our own books because royalties aren't very good at all. If John watches this, I'm in the shit. They're really not great at all. Like, everyone thinks we're loaded because we've written a few books. We live in Logan, but like
no one else knows where Logan is. But anyway, Logan's not a great suburb in Brisbane.
So the only way, like, there's a lot of work in there. Those little books is a year's contract. Australasian elapids was a year. The bigger snakes was a year. So you can imagine what life we don't have putting all that together in a year. Like, don't get me wrong, some of it's copy and paste with the species account and you just change the information accordingly, but you still got to know your stuff. You still got to research it. You still got to find photos or photographers that you can rely on. So it does take a lot of work. And we were sort of like, well, royalties aren't that great. What if we sort of sold our own and, you know, got a bit of money there? So we started to do that. And then when Andreas said, would you, you know, on sell Chimera, Scott sort of looked at me, and beforehand he's like, I don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it. We've got enough on our plate. And then
even less money now.
When Andreas asked, we were like, well, we do our own, we may as well. So that's how the bookshop came into fruition.
So then on top of that, it was like, okay, well, if we're going to do that, we might as well talk to Eco and stuff like that. So then we bring the stuff in from the US and all that sort of stuff now. So yeah.
And where is that? Is that on the nature?
Bookshop.
Is that on the nature? Yeah, that's all on there. Which
website. So if people want, and we'll ship internationally as well. So if people want signed copies or anything like that, we're more than happy to do that. We do try to get the new Chimera books signed as well if there's an opportunity for that. So
nice.
Sometimes if we can get them signed from the authors as well, we'll bring over signed copies and sell those as well at the same price as what we sell the normal ones at. So.
And because I wanted the bookshop, like I would love an actual bookshop, like big comfy armchairs, a coffee machine, you know, a place to just chill, relax. Okay, pastries and whatnot. But yeah, and with that thought, I thought, how cool would it be to do author nights? Where we live is just nowhere compared to most keepers, really. Like it wouldn't be viable. Because I was adamant I wanted to do author nights, ADHD in full swing here. I was, let's do a podcast. And Scott's like, we don't have time to do a podcast. And he's like, not at all. And I'm like, yeah, we do. It'll be easy as piss. And he's like, no, it won't be. And I'm like, yeah, well, he was right. I was wrong. It's not actually that easy. So to do my author nights, so to speak, we then started a podcast.
Yeah, really good. You had Peter
Rowland, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool episode. This book sounded really interesting. Actually, your podcast, which is probably the point of doing them, made me really. It does, though, doesn't it? It makes you interested. Oh, I need to pick that one up, so I'll try and pick that one up. But that was a really good one. You don't do yours live, do you? You're not stupid like me.
No.
I like the edit button.
I like the edit button too sometimes, but that's all right.
Yeah,
that's all good. Not a drama.
Yeah.
I find too
the one with the blue ring on the cover is the second edition for that. So that blue one that you just brought up was the first edition. The second edition's got a blue ring on the cover. So
I find too, some people are like, oh, is it live or not? And when I say not, they're like, yeah, okay, I wouldn't have done it if it was live. So
100%. Yeah, there's a few of the Aussie guys actually who I really want to get on. They were like, yeah, I would do it, but it needs to be pre-recorded, which I can do. It just means that MTS will edit it because I definitely don't have them skills. But yeah, and you can be a bit more open with when it's not live. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So stumbling words or saying something, you can take out. The ones that I've done that haven't been live have been a lot more relaxing, and it also sounds pretty professional. Do you know what I mean? This is not as clean as your guys. but it's
authentic though. Yeah.
It's like two different ones, but it definitely works with what you guys are doing. You had some great guests on. I did struggle to find your one. I don't know why. On YouTube and stuff. Do you want to just check out where you find it? It took me a bit of like.
So it used to automatically go to YouTube, and it doesn't. And we have a few books on the computer. We've been proofing for other people. We've got that podcast. We've got other work. We've got the animals. And refer back to me being scattered as fuck. It's one of those things I keep meaning to do. Some of them are on YouTube and some of them aren't. And I don't know why they're not automatically going to YouTube now. And I'm not overly computer literate. I do the website and everything else, but I don't need to know why or anything. I just need to know the steps, and that's good enough for me. But Yeah.
And if I'm not told that there's an issue, then I won't go looking for one. Either.
Excuse me, I told you 3 times they're not going on YouTube.
I've stopped doing it now, Ty. No, I don't know what it was. I don't know if you share them on your personal page, Scott, or on your.
Yeah, I do. I usually throw them on both when they come out.
Okay.
So,
There's a Facebook page for the podcast as well, which they go up on, and then usually if we're not flustered, it'll go to Nature for You as well. But yeah, I don't know what's happening with YouTube.
It's also you can get it on Spotify, podcasts, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, all of those. So it's on all of those as well. So if people see contributions, they'll find it.
Yeah, yours is just audio, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is
we're not silly enough to do video, mate.
Video, I have to put a bra on and brush my hair. No, thank you.
I'm not going to head for radio, but I'm just unashamed of it. So it's all right.
That's good. Right. So it's cold-blooded contributions, if I've got that right, for the podcast.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Everything can be found on Nature for You. It's been a great episode. Is there anything else you want to shout out? Anything?
No, mate. Just let us know when you're going to hit Brizzy at some point in time. We'll go find you a Bells, eh? We'll go a bit further west.
Okay, so just ask a group of Americans what happened last time Scott promised lace monitors. He promised lace monitors and a barbecue, and neither one of them were at the spot, and they were starving. So it's the local bagging for Scott now.
So there used to be, I'll go into that. So there used to be a barbecue area that had plenty of lace monitors at it because people would cook a barbecue, and the laces would come after the sausages and stuff like that. Well, the council decided to rip out all the barbecues.
Oh, no.
But I didn't know that they ripped out all the barbecues. So I was like, right, okay, this will be great. We'll take these guys down here. We'll show them a heap of lace monitors and we'll have a feed. So we hadn't had lunch or anything like that. We get there, we've got a heap of raw sausages, no lace monitors to be found because they've moved on to greener pastures, so to speak, and no barbecues anyway. Fun and games. So I get a bit of stick now about barbecues and lace monitors.
Oh, at least they didn't have to drive all the way out to Broadwater. So.
He's saving that for next trip.
Definitely. Right, I'm going to kick you guys out. I'll see you after anyway. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Big thanks to MJ and the Trap Talk Reptile Network. He's doing podcasts 7 days a week now. I know you guys are into podcasts. I think it's pretty cool what he's got going on.
I've still got to catch up with Stephen Cush as well for his one. He sort of cornered me ages ago, so we've got to do one. I said, yeah, we'll do it. It's just hard to make the time for us and the US work at the same time, particularly on certain days. So, but yeah, we will make it happen. So, Stephen, if you're listening at some point in time or catching up at some point in time, we will make it happen. So, thanks very much.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, it's been an amazing episode. Cheers, guys. Hope everyone else has enjoyed it. Thank you very much.